Chapter 108, Lord Xiao's Pot 3. Chapter 108, Lord Xiao's Pot. Chen Hao did not think much of it. He did not know how expensive rice and firewood were without being in charge. He did not have much of an idea and did not lack money to spend. They continued with the topic from earlier. Chen Hao was still a little nervous as he said, "Even if it does not affect us, I'm afraid that there will be many more people from the Great Xia Manor on the day of the assessment. I heard that there are many geniuses in the Great Xia Manor. There are a lot of 5th or 6th level of Kaiyuan, and there are also quite a number of 7th or 8th level ones. Do you think they will laugh at us when the time comes?" Su Yu did not think much of it. What's there to laugh about? Losing them to the Southern Yuan Empire might not be as good as yours. We might have a bad start, but we're all the same when we get to the Great Xia Mansion. By then, their progress will definitely not be as fast as ours. He did not look down on the people from the Great Xia Mansion, nor did he look down on the people from the Southern Yuan City. It was a little harder for people from small places to start, but when they got to the Great Xia Mansion, they were treated equally. As long as they were not distracted and were willing to work hard, it was not like there were not many people who were able to stand out. All right then. Chen Hao stopped talking about this matter and very quickly asked curiously, what are you planning to do these few days? The academy will have a holiday in a few days. Why don't we go out and play together? I'm not interested. Su Yu had a lot of things to do these few days. He had to repair his thunder underling and cultivate his thunder origin blade. He was preparing to kill a mid-stage 1000 June cultivator. He still had to read books and increase his willpower. There were so many things to do that he did not have the time to play. Cultivate well. You are not allowed to go anywhere. I'm just guessing. It doesn't mean that the number of people in Nanyuan is the same as before. You had better be at 5th level of Yuan opening. That way, your chances will be higher. Otherwise, it's normal for some poor students to be eliminated. After deducting 1 or 2 spots, there might be you. Su Yu did not use a single drop of the 3 drops of Yuan Qi liquid that Chen Hao's father had given him. However, he had consumed too much during these few days of cultivating the Thunder Essence blade. He could not recover from it. He also did not open the Baihui acupoint, so he could not take the initiative to absorb Yuan Qi. This also caused Su Yu to be severely depleted. These 2 days, he was prepared to swallow a drop of Yuan Qi liquid to greatly replenish himself. It would be better for Chen Hao to cultivate here. All right then. Chen Hao's face was gloomy. He had to read books again. If he had known earlier, he would not have come to Yu's place. At the same time. Nanyuan City Lord's Mansion. City Lord Wu Wenhai, Long Wu Wei Shi Chang Xia Bing, Lu Wenyan, the old mansion master, the hall master of the wind-seizing hall. Many high-ranking officials had gathered here. Wu Wenhai and the others sat down. They went straight to the point and said, "Everyone knows about the matter. The Great Xia Mansion means that each person has 1 family. In other words, if each family has 2 children, they have to buy 2 houses. Those that are more than 100 square meters, and those that are less than 100 square meters are not counted." The old mansion master tugged at his beard and sucked in a breath of cold air. "The Marquis is too evil." Wu Wenhai pretended not to hear him and continued, "Also, the time for the assessment is very tight. Open a special channel to handle it and levy a tax of 10%. This time, Lu Wenyan could not help but ridicule, "Is this money from the Southern Yuan or the Great Xia Manor?" The Great Xia Manor and the Southern Yuan are split 50 to 50. Wu Wenhai smiled and said, "It's a good thing. In any case, Lord Marquis Xia is at the front. We'll just take the money. It has little to do with us." The ones who were complaining were the people from the Great Xia Manor. If you have the ability, then don't come. There are only benefits and no disadvantages for the Southern Yuan. The old manor head frowned and said, "I'm just afraid that they'll take our spots in the end." That won't happen. What the higher-ups are saying is that the initial number of recruits will be more or less the same this time. The difference between the top and bottom won't be too big. The possibility of 2 people will not be reduced by too much in one go. Wu Wenhai reassured him. He said again, this is actually beneficial to us. Originally, the Great Xia Manor was going to be reduced across the board. Even if they were to be split equally with us, they would still lose a quarter of the spots. This time, not only will they not lose anything, they will also be able to earn a sum of money. Southern Yuan isn't rich either, so we can take this opportunity to earn some money. In the future, we will also be able to allocate more funds to various departments. Everyone nodded. Seeing this, Wu Wenhai said, it's settled then. It's useless for us to oppose it. I've gathered everyone this time mainly to let everyone go back and tell the students not to feel any pressure and not to act rashly. The higher-ups will consider the matter and not disregard our thoughts and act rashly. Also, the Great Xia Manor will definitely be a little chaotic recently. The members are all in a mess. The wind-seizing hall and the city guards should be prepared for safety and defense to prevent the people from the myriad clan sect from taking advantage of the chaos. We must also be wary of them fanning the flames and guiding public opinion. Wu Wenhai said seriously, some people don't understand and spread the news. Once the people from the Southern Yuan think that outsiders have encroached on their spots and interests, it will definitely cause some trouble. We must be vigilant about this matter. Everyone hurriedly agreed. Wu Wenhai heaved a sigh of relief. He smiled and said, also, the higher-ups are saying that we should try our best to keep these guys in the Southern Yuan. They are all rich people. The development of the Southern Yuan is not fast, its resources are limited, and its economy is not developed. This time, they are giving themselves to us for free. No, they are giving themselves to us for free. If they stay, then the Southern Yuan will develop even better in the future. Also, the Academy has an additional plan to make money. What? Wu Wenhai smiled and said, the Marquis said that all the examinees must be affiliated to the Academy. In other words, when those people come to the Southern Yuan, they have to enter a medium-sized academy. How much is a place on the list of academies? You guys can decide for yourselves. Don't be too ridiculous. Lu Wenyan sucked in a breath of cold air. This fatty. Cough cough, Lord Xiaoho is plucking feathers from a wild goose. He's raising taxes, relying on the school, and buying houses. He won't stop until this family pulls out a few million. Wu Wenhai also smiled wryly. Lord Xiaoho is like this. He also said that you don't have to spend money if you don't want to. He didn't force anyone to spend money. If you have the ability, you can get into the Great Xia Manor by yourself. He didn't do anything to you. Tell me, who can do anything to him? Lord Xiaoho's means of earning money, the old manor head clicked his tongue. After a long while, he said, I don't know if the old man of Great Xia knows. If he knows, I'll beat him to death. Then it's none of our business. Wu Wenhai said without any sincerity, as long as Lord Xiaoho can hold on by himself. Of course, he's used to it. Just scold him if you want. It's not the first time anyway. A few years ago, the Marquis opened a black market secretly and traded a large number of merit points. He blackmailed the wealthy of the Great Xia Manor by tens of billions. In the end, it was all settled. When these words were said, everyone had different expressions. Merit points had a hierarchical system. Some people might not be able to buy things even if they had money. In the end, a few years ago, the Great Xia Manor opened a black market. As long as you had money, you could buy anything you wanted. Of course, the price was ridiculously expensive. Moreover, using merit points to trade, the price of a single merit point on the black market was raised to more than 100,000. Not only that, the price of the things you bought was also doubled. This was repeated over and over again, and that was the difference of more than 10 times. Just like that, there were still many wealthy people who flocked to it. In the end, they were all taken away by someone. It was Lord Xiao's good deed. The merit points that the wealthy people bought were all wasted in the end. Xiao Longwu personally took care of it. He did not confiscate the merit points, but he could only trade according to normal merit points. Those that could not be bought still could not be bought. The merit points were placed on the account. Some people bought hundreds of thousands of merit points, their merit points could only buy a few hundred of that kind of material. Even if they had money, they would not be able to spend it. They could not secretly trade with others because these people were on Xiao Longwu's list. Who dared to trade in secret? Weren't they afraid that the people trading were taught by the Wan clan? After this matter, Lord Xiao kept a low profile for a few years. Now, he was out to make money again. That time, it was said that he made tens of billions, or even more. As for where the money went, no one knew, and no one dared to ask. Anyway, this money did not belong to anyone else. It was all bought voluntarily by some rich dog. When Wu Wenhai mentioned this matter, Lu Wenyan and the others did not say anything. If it were not for Xiao Longwu's extremely serious and iron-blooded attitude, they would have suspected that he was fishing to enforce the law back then. In any case, the ones who lost in the end were those rich people. The impact on others was limited, so there were not many people discussing this matter. However, during that period of time, Lord Xia was scolded terribly by those rich people. It was also at that time that the reputation of Pig-head Xia spread. Everyone cheered when Lord Xia was mentioned. Lu Wenyan was also laughing. He could not help but sigh in his heart. It was unknown how many times this fatty Xia had taken the blame. Currently, it was likely that not many people would remember the suave young Lord Xia from 50 years ago. Half of the sky in the Great Xia Manor was supported by that fellow who was called Pighead. Unfortunately, everyone was ignorant and followed the same path. There were a few people who knew about this. With a pig statue on his face and a clear voice in his heart, this was the name of Lord Xia who was constantly being cursed. Chapter 109, Killing Another 1,000 Lives. Chapter 109, Killing Another 1,000 Lives. June 11th. After a day of preparation, the news still spread. The people from the Great Xia Mansion were about to participate in the higher education institution assessment of the Southern Yuan. There were already people from the Great Xia Mansion who had rushed to the Southern Yuan to wait for the assessment. When the news spread, there were also some criticisms mixed in. The Great Xia Mansion wants to deprive the Southern Yuan students of their higher education institution quota. Lord Xia only wants money. He doesn't care about the lives of the Nanyuan citizens. He even wants to sell the Nanyuan city to the Great Ming Mansion. The Nanyuan city has been abandoned by the Great Xia Mansion. All kinds of voices were spreading. Some of them were from the ordinary citizens, and some of them were deliberately trying to mislead the public. The city governor's mansion quickly made a response. The wind-catching hall was on standby all day. The Nanyuan Academy also began to explain to all the students. The assessment quota for the people from the Great Xia Mansion was a special quota, and it had nothing to do with the southern element. This was an additional quota, and it would not encroach on the student quota of the southern element. Public opinion began to change. Of course, not everyone believed it. However, at this moment, it was not as intense as it was at the beginning. Most of the people who heard it quickly believed it. Wind-seizing Hall. It was not Su Yu's first time here. He had come with Lu Wenyan the previous few times. This time, he did not call for Lu Wenyan. Instead, he came alone. In the busy hall of the wind-seizing hall, Su Yu did not cause any trouble. At this moment, he was squatting at the corner, chatting with an old wind-seizing constable who was smoking. "Uncle Li, have you found any traces of the Wanzhou sect?" "I'm investigating." The middle-aged man's surname was Li. He was an old man of the wind-seizing hall. He was in the critical realm, but he was only a low-level wind-seizing constable. His strength was too weak. Although his strength was weak, the man had stayed in the wind-seizing hall for many years, so he was well informed. While smoking, he laughed and said, "Little Su, all the students of the middle-level school in Nanyuan, you are this one." The man gave him a thumbs up. "You are the first one to participate in the hunt before graduation." But, the man praised, then he said in a low voice, "Your teacher didn't come this time. It's very dangerous for you to follow us alone. To put it bluntly, without your teacher, we might not be able to save you even if we wanted to." Suyu nodded obediently. He said hurriedly, "Uncle Lee, I won't cause any trouble. I'll just wait outside. It's mainly up to you. If I can miss one or two seriously injured ones to complete the teacher's assessment, then I'll be thankful to the heavens." The man chuckled and said, "Don't worry. If there's a chance, we'll let the seriously injured ones out. The hall master will also give face to Instructor Liu. Besides, we guys have interacted with your father quite a lot. In the past, we chased after the fellows of the Myriad clan cult. Sometimes, your father even helped a little. We can be considered as outsiders of the wind-seizing hall." Suyu revealed a smile and quickly thanked him. His father actually didn't like to meddle in other people's business. However, when it came to killing the members of the Myriad clan cult, as long as there were people who could fight, they were willing to intervene. Su Long, who was in grave danger, could be considered a good hand in the southern Yuan. As the two of them were chatting, a captain-level wind-seizing officer from the wind-seizing hall quickly shouted, "Team North, gather." As soon as he finished speaking, Old Lee quickly threw down his cigarette butt and ran towards the hall. Suyu also hurriedly followed. He did not join the queue. Instead, he stood behind this group of people and did not make a sound. The captain who had gathered the team members glanced at him and did not say anything. He said in a deep voice, "Traces of the 10,000 races religion have been discovered in the suburbs. This time, it is not a large-scale gathering. Instead, a portion of them came out to incite the people. Currently, according to the news, we can roughly confirm that there are only 3 people. The specific strength is unknown, but the manpower needed to spread the news is not too strong. The task has been handed to the North team. Give everyone 3 minutes. Make all the preparations and move out immediately." "Yes." Everyone responded one after another. A team of 30 people from the wind-seizing hall was not a small number. The team leader was in the realm of the critical mass 9th stage. There were also a few people in the team who were above the critical mass 7th stage. The others were at least at the critical mass 4th stage. After the team members left to make preparations, the captain walked in front of Suyu. He said seriously, "The hall master has other missions and will not go. Your teacher did not follow. Suyu, you have participated in the hunt before. You know how dangerous it is. I know your teacher is in the sky realm and your father and I have a good relationship. But during the mission, no one will specially take care of you. This is a mission, not a joke. The slightest carelessness will result in death. Every year, someone from the wind-seizing hall will be sacrificed. You can participate, but you cannot interfere with the wind-seizing hall's operation. If you encounter danger, you can run, you can call for help, but we may not help you. Your life is your life, and the lives of others are also lives. We will not destroy the entire operation plan for you." The captain was extremely serious. "You can choose to leave now, or else, you'll have to bear all the consequences." Suyu, who was at the origin opening realm, was too weak. Even though Suyu had participated in the operation a few times before, Lu Wenyan was there at that time, and even the hall master, Zheng Hua, was accompanying him. That way, there was no danger at all. Today was different. Only Suyu came alone. "Captain Lu, don't worry. My father is a soldier. I'm also considered a reserve soldier. I won't cause trouble for everyone. Su Yu hurriedly replied. Captain Lu nodded slightly, and his attitude softened a little. He exhorted, then you be careful. I've also heard from others that you're a civilized master and have special methods, but don't be rash. Understood. Su Yu replied, and smiled bitterly in his heart. What civilized master? I'm just a so-so. Chapter 110, Kill Qianjun 2 again. Chapter 110, Kill Qianjun 2 again. The people of the southern Yuan still did not know much about civilized masters. There were no civilized masters in the air. 3 minutes later, the entire team gathered again, fully armed. Outside the hall, 2 trucks had already started moving. Everyone got into the trucks, and Su Yu followed them. In the trucks, everyone did not say much. They packed their equipment and checked their rations. Su Yu also checked it. It was a yellow-class medium-grade blade and 4 drops of iron wing bird essence blood. 3 of them were exchanged by him at the academy early in the morning. It cost him 3 merit points. At this moment, he only had 10 merit points left. It was better to be prepared in case he ran into danger. 1 drop was not enough. Moreover, the 4 drops of essence blood were not put together to prevent them from being lost during the battle. One of them was wrapped in a small capsule by Su Yu and was directly put in his mouth. At the critical moment, he could swallow it instantly. After cultivating for a few days, Su Yu had barely entered the rudiments of the lightning essence blade. At this moment, he could slash out with the blade, but the speed was not too fast. The lightning essence blade consumed a lot of Yuan Qi. Su Yu was unable to connect to the Yuan Qi in the outside world, so this time, he brought a drop of Yuan Qi liquid. He still had a drop at home, so there was no need to bring too much Yuan Qi liquid. 1 drop was enough for him. 3 drops of blood essence and 1 drop of Yuan Qi liquid. It's worth about 200,000 yuan. Su Yu sighed in his heart. If he added the saber, he would have prepared hundreds of thousands of yuan before the battle. If he did not gain anything, he would be in trouble. It would be best if he did not use anything. He could kill 1,000 Jun and get some merit points. If he used it, he would have to kill at least 1,000 Jun if he used a drop of blood essence. This was the first time he had participated in such an operation by himself. While Su Yu was excited, he could not help but feel a little nervous. This time, he had failed, but no one would be able to catch up to him. Beside him, Old Li was also there. After checking his equipment, he saw that Su Yu's body was tense. He could not help but smile and say, "Relax, don't be nervous. When we arrive, we will get off the car. We will walk very quickly. You might not be able to catch up." Su Yu nodded and said seriously, "I know. I will wait outside. Be careful. If the other party is unharmed, even if you saw him, you'd better pretend that you didn't see him. It doesn't matter if he ran away. We can kill him sooner or later. Don't fall now." "Thank you, Uncle Li." The conversation between the two was heard by the others in the car. A young member in the crowd who looked no older than Su Yu smiled and said, "5 years ago, it was my first time participating in a mission. I was also very nervous. I got used to it later. Su Yu, just adjust yourself. Don't be afraid." "Thank you, Brother Chen." Brother Chen was not old, not even 30 years old. At least, he was not considered old in the Wind Seizing Hall. He was a member of the younger generation. Now that they were chatting, he was also interested. He smiled and said, "Su Yu, your warrior talent is very strong. Haven't you considered going to Zhangjin College? My teacher is a civilized master." Su Yu grinned and said, "He wants me to go to a civilized college. Then, I can only go to a civilized college." That's true. Teacher Lu is actually a civilization master. In fact, I only found out about it before. Brother Chen said. He sighed and said, "In the Great Xia Mansion, fighters are not valuable. Civilization masters are the treasures. 5 years ago, I graduated from Wind-Catching University. Students who graduated from Wind-Catching University would find it difficult to find a job in the Great Xia Mansion unless they are top-notch genius students. Like us, we can only go back to our own homes and return to the small city to find a job. But over at Civilization Academy, once you graduate, you'll become a civilized master. Any force will fight for it. Su Yu was somewhat moved. Wind Seizing Academy could graduate at the intermediate stage of the Thousand June realm, while Civilization Academy could graduate when it was vacated. Just this point alone could see the difference between the two. Of course. Brother Chen quickly smiled and said, Su Yu, you'll know how difficult it is to graduate when you arrive at Civilization Academy. Every year, less than 50 students graduate from Civilization Academy. You have to know that the annual enrollment is close to 2,000 students. The graduation rate is 2.5%. There are also many older students. Very few can graduate in 10 years. So few. Su Yu was surprised at first, but then he nodded slightly. It was true that only those who graduated in the sky could be considered to have graduated. There were close to 50 people who graduated in a year, which meant that there were 50 more people who graduated in the sky. In fact, it was not a small number. 50 people a year was equivalent to cultivating more than 50 sky-level powerhouses every year. It was equivalent to the city lord of the small city of Nanyuan. It was not too little. The others did not know much about this situation. After some people finished checking their equipment, they interjected at this moment, is it so difficult to graduate? Among the older generation of the Wind Seizing Hall, most of them were veterans or had transferred back from their careers. The Wind Seizing Hall had not been established for long, and those who graduated were all the younger generation. Therefore, some of the older Wind Seizing officers might not have been to the Great Xia Mansion. Brother Chen nodded and said, it's really difficult. Of course, their graduation criteria are different. For example, Instructor Liu, he can be considered to have just graduated from the civilized university. It's not like there aren't people who have graduated at the age of 70. When he said that, everyone had a strange expression on their faces. Just graduated? Alright, they didn't understand the world of the Great Xia Mansion. Anyway, in their eyes, Teacher Liu was now on equal footing with the city lord. In the end, he only graduated when he reached the Great Xia Civilization University. While they were chatting, they arrived at their destination. They didn't go straight to the location where the news was reported. About a kilometer away from the location, the car stopped. He quickly got out of the car. The captain did not say anything. With a wave of his hand, the team split into two groups, advancing separately, flanking left and right. Su Yu did not follow any of the teams. He was about 300 meters behind the two teams, advancing cautiously. He was not prepared to be the vanguard. Instead, he was at the back to see if he could pick up a loophole. No one knew how many people there were in the 10,000 tribes. The report said that there were 3 people. As the old wind hunter, everyone understood that the news might not be accurate. Chapter 111, Killing Qianjun 3 Again. Chapter 111, Killing Qianjun 3 Again. 3 people, that's just what you saw. Maybe there are more hidden inside. Every year, because the information was not accurate enough, there were not only 1 or 2 wind captors who sacrificed themselves. This was also unavoidable. Even if there were only 3 people, it would still be a big problem if one Wancher suddenly appeared or soared into the sky. There was still hope for Wancher to be resolved, but there was really no hope for him to soar into the sky. He could only admit that he was unlucky. In the distance, an ordinary small courtyard appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was no different from a normal house in the suburbs. There were also some vegetable fields near the small courtyard. At this moment, they could still see green. The field of vision of the small courtyard was wide. The members of the 10,000 tribes liked to move in this kind of environment. Once large-scale people arrived, they could quickly discover them and escape. Wind-seizing Hall had dealt with the other party many times, and they were also very experienced. If it were not for Suyu keeping an eye on them, they might not even be able to see where they were at this moment. The 30 people were all pretending to crawl forward. Suyu did not dare to show his head. He squatted in a small pit and waited. The captain who was crawling forward carefully turned his head to take a look. He did not see Suyu and heaved a slight sigh of relief. He was actually very worried that Suyu would expose his whereabouts carelessly, which would easily expose their whereabouts. Previously, he had warned them a few times. He was worried that the other party would not listen to him. Now, it seemed that the other party was rather obedient. After all, he was Su Long's son and his father was a soldier. Suyu did not have the arrogance of those people from the great Xia mansion. Suyu held his knife tightly. He panted gently and adjusted his breathing. He was a little excited. Very soon, he calmed down. It was not the first time. He had killed several people in the Thousand June realm. At this moment, there were about 100 meters away from the small courtyard. The people from the wind-seizing hall could no longer conceal their whereabouts. The captain raised his hand and the others quickly stood up. No one shouted. The 30 people moved quickly and rushed towards the small courtyard. Wind-seizing hall. A stern shout rang out. The members of the 10,000 clans in the small courtyard were being watched. It was only at this moment that they discovered the people who had come. With one look, they knew that the people of the wind-seizing hall had come. Retreat! A shout rang out. In the next moment, 5 or 6 figures jumped out of the small courtyard. It wasn't 3 people. These people had experience as well, and they broke out of the encirclement from all directions. Whoever was unlucky would be caught up by the wind-seizing hall. This was also their way of survival. They weren't as strong as the other party, so they fled swiftly without any hesitation. Whoever could escape would be considered lucky, and whoever was killed would be unlucky. The wind-seizing hall usually didn't dare to split up their forces. Under such circumstances, their battle prowess wasn't considered strong, and they could easily be defeated by the myriad clan cult. Therefore, a team of 30 people could only form 3 encirclement at most. Then the others would have a chance to escape. Sure enough, the captain of wind-seizing hall did not chase after all of them. Instead, he quickly formed a team of 10 people. Of the 3 teams, 2 teams quickly chased after them in other directions. The captain personally led a team of people to kick open the gate of the small courtyard and rushed in. Suyu watched from behind. With his eyes opened, he could see clearly from a few hundred meters away. Seeing the actions of the wind-seizing hall, Suyu also gained something. If it were him, he might have directly led people to chase after those who had escaped. He probably did not think that there might be enemies lurking in the small courtyard for a moment. The reason for the experience. Suyu did not belittle himself. This kind of experience, if he experienced it a few more times, he would quickly master it. The 2 teams that were outside had already caught up with the enemy and began to surround and kill. The sound of weapons clashing could be heard in the blink of an eye. Although these wind-arresting officers were not very strong, their coordination was extremely good. Suyu estimated that the one that was surrounded was at least at the critical juncture. However, almost at the moment of contact, the other party was killed. And among the 10-man team, there did not seem to be any at the critical juncture. Suyu glanced at them and then ignored them. He quickly looked around. 5 or 6 people had just jumped out. At this moment, 2 of them were killed in the blink of an eye. The 2 teams continued to chase after them, but there were still some who escaped. However, those guys ran quickly. They could still see people just a moment ago, but now they could not be seen at all. The place that the members of the myriad clans chose this time is actually not very good. The field of vision is wide. It is easy to find the enemy when they come up, but it is also troublesome to run. We should choose a terrain that is easier to escape. Su Yu had learned his lesson, so he might be able to use it in the future. The location I chose isn't good either. It's behind the wind-seizing hull. The enemy might not dare to run this way, and they might not be able to get here either. Of course, I only picked up the opportunity. Safety first. Just as he was thinking, a shout came from the small courtyard. In the next moment, a few more figures jumped out. As expected, there were still people inside. This time, the two teams outside the small courtyard had already gone far away. No one stopped them. Su Yu saw a figure quickly running toward his side. Su Yu immediately put all his attention on it. It was coming. This speed, it feels like it's about the same as the guy who chased me last time. It's at the critical moment. Behind him, the captain of the wind-catching hull left the team and quickly chased after him. He shouted, "The people in front put down their weapons and surrender." The policy of the higher-ups has changed. The believers of the 10,000 clans are not guilty of deep sins. They can be sent to the heavenly battlefield to participate in the war. They don't have to be killed anymore. Su Yu was suspicious at first, but then he quickly understood that this was to break the other party's fighting spirit. The higher-ups did not have such an order. The policy of the Great Xia mansion was still to have to be killed. The believers of the 10,000 clans all knew that if they were caught by the Great Xia mansion, they would definitely die. Therefore, they usually fought to the death. This way, the difficulty of the battle would increase. He did not know whether this guy would believe it or not. Clearly, the other party did not believe them. Perhaps, he still had hope and continued to flee. 200 meters, 100 meters. He was getting closer and closer to Su Yu, but his direction was a little off. Su Yu squatted down and stealthily made his way over. Soon, he arrived. He was still dozens of meters away from Su Yu. Su Yu stood up and raised his saber. Yuan Qi rapidly gathered as the saber emitted a weak glow. Yuan Qi gathered all over his body as he shouted, "Stop!" An ambush was no longer possible. Then he could only kill by force. Kaiyuan. The person who was escaping had a shocked expression. Yuan opening realm. He was not wearing the uniform of the wind arresting officer. Was he, just passing by? Yuan opening realm, how dare he stop him? Was he crazy? Don't even think about running. Su Yu shouted, "If I stop you, I'll get merit points and get extra points for the assessment. You're courting death." That person did not waste any time and did not want to be caught up. He raised his saber and slashed at Su Yu. The two of them quickly approached. At this moment, Su Yu's eyes widened. "Hall Master!" A cry of surprise was heard. The 10,000 clans disciple was also stunned. Suddenly, a person appeared in front of him. Beside Kai Yuan, a middle-aged man appeared. He was the Hall Master of the wind-seizing hall, Zhenghua. "It's over." This person's expression changed drastically. The myriad rock realm Zhenghua had actually arrived. Just as he turned around and was about to run, Su Yu's long-prepared lightning origin saber slashed out. All-out effort. The myriad tribal clan's disciple charged at Su Yu first before turning around to run. For a moment, his body was still turning, but the sound of the saber had already sounded behind him. At this moment, Su Yu, who had gone all out, had his illusionary realm shattered. The other party was already somewhat awake. Unfortunately, it was too late. Fake. This thought flashed across his mind as the Yuan Qi on the saber shimmered like lightning. With a poochie sound, it slashed down. Pang! His head crashed onto the ground and his body fell to the ground after a while. The blood reflected on the ground was red. Su Yu's face turned pale. He sheathed his saber and looked around warily. He did not dare to be careless, afraid that someone would suddenly appear. The blood essence in his mouth had already been bitten by his teeth and he was ready to explode at any moment. At the next moment, the captain charged over. He took a glance at Su Yu and nodded slightly. He said in slight surprise, "Not bad. You are very decisive with your saber." Without saying anything else, the captain praised and left quickly. The battle was not over yet. Su Yu let out a long sigh. It was done. It was faster and simpler than he had imagined. He killed the other party with a single slash. However, his body had been hollowed out and his yuan qi had been exhausted. Su Yu did not dare to delay. He immediately swallowed a drop of yuan qi liquid and began replenishing his yuan qi. 100,000 yuan is gone. I wonder if it's a loss or a gain. Su Yu smiled bitterly in his heart. Killing a mid-stage of Qianjun was worth 2 merit points. Was this considered a loss or a gain? However, the yuan qi liquid was to help him cultivate. It was not considered a loss. Chapter 112, Comrade 1. Chapter 112, Comrade 1. Su Yu had used his Thunder Essence blade once and had expended a lot of energy. He was absorbing yuan qi liquid to recover. At this moment, battles were also breaking out in other places. The battles were not too intense. The members of the Myriad Clan sect were determined to run, so there were not many of them. Very soon, those small teams killed their opponents one after another. In the small courtyard, the sounds of battle gradually weakened. Captain Lu rushed back to participate in the battle. With his strength, dealing with some of the lower and middle-level members of the Myriad Clan cult wouldn't be a problem. Su Yu was quite satisfied. He had killed a guy in the middle stage of the Myriad Clan cult. Not to mention anything else, he had obtained 2 merit points. This time, he had killed him alone. Of course, as an outsider, after he killed the other party, the spoils of war didn't belong to him, but to the Zephyr Guild. They had to hand them over together and then distribute the rewards. This had nothing to do with Su Yu. After all, he had come to participate in the operation to take credit. Without the cooperation of the Zephyr clan, Su Yu would not have had the chance to kill a member of the 10,000 tribes alone. Su Yu looked around and did not see anyone else. The members of the Zephyr clan began to gather in the small courtyard to kill the last remnants of the army. As for how many members of the 10,000 tribes there were, Su Yu did not know. There were probably more than 10 of them. This was not considered a small stronghold. It could already be considered a medium-sized stronghold. Medium-sized. Su Yu was slightly shocked. If there were more than 10 people, then it could be considered a medium-sized stronghold. Just as he was thinking about this, over at the small courtyard, Captain Lu suddenly roared, "Be careful, there's a leader here." Ah! A short scream was heard. In the next moment, Captain Lu's furious roar was heard. Boom! The wall of the small courtyard had completely collapsed. Su Yu was alarmed and hurriedly looked over. At that moment, Captain Lu was fighting with a middle-aged man who looked like a sick person. Captain Lu was using a military-made long saber, while the other party was using a long rod. The two of them opened and closed, and yuan qi burst out, causing the surrounding walls to continuously collapse. On the side of the wind-hunting squad, someone had already fallen to the ground, while the others were surrounding the middle-aged sick person. "Xiao Qin." Someone called out in a low voice. Su Yu's heart trembled slightly. Xiao Qin. Brother Qin. The one who had just fallen was Brother Qin. Just now in the car, he had even spoken to him. Team 2, get into formation. While fighting, Captain Lu shouted, "We've caught the leader. Brothers, if we succeed, it will be a great achievement." With his shout, a team of 10 people behind him, led by the team leader, stepped forward one after another. In the next moment, an iron chain appeared in the hands of the 10 people. In front of the iron chain hung a weapon that looked like an axe. Team leader Lu quickly retreated, and the sound of wind whistling could be heard. The 10 chains were thrown out by the people of the wind-catching hall, and the sound of air exploding could be heard in the air. Ha! Although the patient seemed to have no strength, he was full of energy at this moment. With a roar, he swept the long rod horizontally, and with a bang, sparks were created on the iron chain, and one of the iron chains was broken directly. The other iron chains were also swept away by him. First team, go! Captain Lu shouted again. The small team that had long been prepared didn't say anything. They threw the large pitchforks that had been prepared in their hands toward the man. The 10 people were scattered in all directions. The consumptive ghost couldn't fly. At this moment, he roared and waved his long rod, causing the pitchforks to emit sparks again. The last team didn't need Captain Lu's instructions. They had long been scattered in the outer area. At this moment, a large net was spread out by a few people and fell from the sky, quickly enveloping the man. I knew this would happen. The man was a little angry. With a roar, he stomped on the ground and jumped up. He struck at the members of the wind-gathering hall who were blocking his way. On the wind-gathering hall side, the team members quickly circled around the man. They did not stay on the ground for long. As the large net fell, the iron chains struck horizontally. The iron pitchforks kept blocking the man's advance. The man was even more furious. At this moment, Captain Lu had already retreated from the encirclement. His eyes were ice cold. He did not charge in again. Instead, he circled around the outer area. Once the man showed signs of breaking out of the encirclement, Captain Lu would join forces with the team members to kill the man back. 10,000 stones. At this moment, Suyu understood. 10,000 stone realm. If it wasn't for 10,000 stones, with Captain Lu's strength of 1,009 layers, he would not have allowed the others to cooperate. The entire North team was making their moves at this moment. Among them, there were quite a few people at 1,007 layers. With so many people, they were still unable to take down the man. It was clear that the man's strength was formidable. He was definitely in existence at the 10,000 stone realm. Boom! An explosion rang out. Seeing that he was surrounded by people weaker than him, the man was extremely furious. He used all his strength and smashed down with his staff, smashing an iron fork into pieces. Even though the member holding the iron fork was still a few meters away from him. At this moment, the force was transmitted over. The bones in his hand were shattered, and blood flowed like a river. At this moment, the man was also struck by an iron chain. The axe hanging on the iron chain instantly cut a bloody scar on the man's leg, and blood flowed continuously. Qianjun kills tens of thousands of stones. At this moment, Suyu suddenly knew that his father had mentioned that Qianjun could kill tens of thousands of stones on the battlefield. 30 Qianjun members, who were only members of the wind-seizing hall in a small city, had surrounded the other party at this moment and were exhausting and grinding the other party to death. The people of the wind-seizing hall were considered elites in the Southern Yuan dynasty, but in fact, these people were no longer qualified to continue fighting in the heavenly battlefield. However, they had put on a show for Suyu today. What did it mean that cultivation realm was not the only suppression? It was difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. When they encountered a well-organized combat team, even if they were powerful, they would be killed. You want to exhaust me to death? In your dreams. The man roared angrily, if I fight to the death, you will also die. Lu Pingshan, let me go. If I leave the Southern Yuan dynasty, everyone will have a good life. Chapter 113, Comrade 2. Chapter 113, Comrade 2. I still have a stronghold in Nanyuan. I will deposit 300 gold coins as your spoils of war. Lu Pingshan, Nanyuan is only a small city. Are you really going to bury a wind-arresting squad here? Nanyuan was not strong, and there were not many small squads like the wind-arresting squad. If a 10,000 stone squad went all out, not to mention killing all of them, the squad would probably suffer heavy losses in the end. Captain Lu didn't reply. After becoming a wind-seizing catcher, he should have expected this day to come. It was also unexpected that he would encounter a Wuxia realm expert. Medium-sized. No, actually, this wasn't counted as such. There were only over 10 people, and one of them had reached the peak of the Qianjun 9th layer. He didn't expect that there was actually a Wuxia realm 1-layer fellow hiding here. No, it's possible that he hasn't broken through for long, so he hasn't had the time to transfer his position yet. Within the Myriad Clan sect, there were also different levels. There was a hierarchy between the upper and lower levels. A 10,000 stone realm cultivator should not be leading such a small army. The other party should have just broken through not too long ago. From the previous battle between the two of them, it could be seen that the man did not swiftly suppress him. Kill. Captain Lu ignored him. The 3 10-man teams continued to work together to deplete the other party's energy and yuan qi. This person would not be able to escape. Lu Pingshan. Are you going to fight me to the death? The man smashed another pitchfork with his staff. The member holding the pitchfork spat out blood and flew backward. The bones in his hand were broken, and he was powerless to continue fighting. The gap was quickly filled by others. The huge net that had fallen in the air was also forcefully torn open by the man. However, there were many wounds on his body at the moment. At the back. Su Yu was shocked to the core when he saw this. Then, he hesitated. The other party was too strong. He saw that the arm of a team member who was weighing a ton was directly blown apart by the other party's rod. If this continued, just as the man had said, he would probably not be able to escape. However, the losses of the wind-seizing hull would definitely be huge. Su Yu gritted his teeth and no longer hesitated. He quickly ran in that direction. Very soon, Su Yu arrived at the place. Captain Lu saw it, but he ignored him. Now that Su Yu had joined in, even if he died, he would die in vain. Even he himself could not guarantee his survival. The other party was dead for sure, but his side, this northern team, might also be crippled after this. Captain Lu. Scram! Lu Pingshan shouted angrily and turned his head to glare at Su Yu. At this time, he was causing trouble. Even if he hacked Su Yu to death with his saber, no one dared to say anything. Even Lu Wenyan could not do it. This was a battlefield when they fought. Even the wind-seizing hull had its own battlefield. Being stared at by Captain Lu's murderous eyes, Su Yu's heart trembled. This was Captain Wind-seizing Hull, who had really killed many people. He was not an ordinary official. Captain, I can interfere with him. Su Yu's voice was very soft, mixed in with the sound of weapons clashing. He quickly said, I am a reserve civilized master. I can create an illusion to interfere with his moment. Can Captain Lu take the opportunity to kill him? Huh? Captain Lu, who originally wanted to kick Su Yu away, was slightly stunned. He instantly regained his senses and said, Illusion, how long will the disruption last? I don't know. Maybe, 1 second. Su Yu was not sure. He had never tried it before. Captain Lu looked at the man who was still breaking out of the encirclement. After about 2 or 3 seconds, he said solemnly, I will create a gap and give him a chance to break out. You disrupt him, Su Yu. Military orders are like mountains. I order you to at least disrupt him for more than 1 second. I can't do it. I'll die. You've done it. Kill him. No one in the team needs to die. Captain Lu quickly came up with a plan. He would create an opportunity for the man to break out of the encirclement. Su Yu would interfere and he would instantly attack and kill the man. If he could not kill the man, he would definitely kill the man in close combat. The man would come back to his senses and he would die. Of course. The man would also be seriously injured. Should he bet or not? He did not hesitate. If he died, the man would also be heavily injured. He would soon be surrounded and killed. The others would not be sacrificed. In the face of the battle, he had no choice but to think about it. Many people in the wind-seizing hall were veterans who had come from the heavenly battlefield. Captain Lu was the same. At the critical moment, he was willing to take the risk. Su Yu's heart trembled. Military orders. He did not know if he could do it. He had thought that he could do it. After all, it had affected Lu Wenyan and the others previously. The other party was only 10,000 stones, so it should have some effect. But, if he failed, Captain Lu would die. Could he bear such responsibility? Captain Lu didn't give him a chance. He quickly shouted, Team 2, retreat 3 meters. Team 1, stop him. The several 10-man teams didn't hesitate. They obeyed the order. The man roared again. He waved his long rod so tightly that it couldn't be penetrated. The members kept retreating. Many of their hands were bleeding, but they were still full of fighting spirit. Captain Lu began to enter the middle area between the first and second teams. He did not look at Su Yu anymore. He only said in a low voice, he broke through the encirclement of the first team in an instant and created an illusion. I'll kill him. As for whether Su Yu could seize that opportunity, he did not think about it. The result was the same anyway. The only difference was whether the team members would die by themselves or by others. Su Yu's heart was in his throat. He wanted to devour the blood essence to help in the battle, but even if he did, it would only be the explosive power of the Thousand June realm. It would be useless to kill 10,000 stones. Su Yu gritted his teeth. I can only create an illusion to restrict him. What illusion? If he wanted to make people feel realistic and lost in thought, ordinary illusions would not work. Su Yu began to think quickly. Hall Master. No, Hall Master Jin Feng is only 10,000 stones. City Lord. The City Lord is here. Perhaps it will make him feel even more despair and unleash his full strength. We have to give him hope, we can't make him feel despair. Facing 10,000 stones, it was impossible for a besieged 10,000 stones to do the same as before. Chapter 114, Comrade 3. Chapter 114, Comrade Right, we can only create his companion to save his companion. In the next moment, Su Yu made a decision. He knew that this decision was related to the life and death of a tough man. Although he wasn't familiar with Captain Lu, he didn't want the other party to die here. He also didn't want others to die here. The man continued to break out of the encirclement. At this moment, more and more people were injured. As for the man himself, his wounds were also increasing. Fresh blood dyed his clothes red. Like a wild beast in despair, the man roared and roared, Lu Pingshan, if you want to die, we'll die together. Even before I die, I'll kill all of you. We'll see what we can do. Lu Pingshan's expression did not change. He was incomparably cold. He held a long knife in his hand and constantly filled in the gaps. At this moment, a team member was once again struck by the man's pitchfork. With a poochie sound, the bones in his hand were completely broken and the pitchfork fell to the ground. Lu Pingshan's expression changed drastically. Stop him. He quickly rushed over, but the man was overjoyed. An opportunity to escape. How could he have the mood to tangle with these people? He had wanted to escape previously. As for Lu Pingshan, he was just saying it. He did not want to fight to the death with him. Who would want to die if they could survive? The moment the man broke out of the encirclement, Lu Pingshan had already arrived in front of him. At this moment, the distance between the two of them was less than 3 meters. The man held a long stick in his hand. If he smashed it down, it was possible that his head would explode. Of course, Lu Pingshan didn't care about his life. Even if he was about to die, he could still severely injure the man. The man had no intention to fight him to the death. Just as he was about to quickly break out of the encirclement, his vision blurred. In the next moment, a member of the Myriad clan who had escaped earlier suddenly appeared not far away. He roared, "The Hall Master has come to assist us. Leave them here." Great merit. This Hall Master was not the Hall Master of the Jailwind clan, but the Hall Master of the Myriad clan cult. The Hall Master had come. The man was stunned for a moment before he was overjoyed. The Hall Master was in existence at the soaring tier. The Hall Master had actually rushed over. He recognized the person who had reported the news. It was a member of his team. He had already escaped earlier. He did not expect the other party to have returned. For the other party to dare to return at this moment, it was clear that he was not seeking death. In that instant, the man could not contain his joy. Not only would he not die this time, he would have to make a contribution instead. He would have to wipe out an entire squad from the wind-chiming hall. In the next moment, before the man's eyes, in the distant sky, a figure tore through the air and arrived. The figure was illusory, but the man did not care about it. It was so far away, and he did not take it to heart that it was just an illusion. It's here. It's really here. It's one of his men. If it was an expert from the southern plains, his men would have died a long time ago. All of this happened too quickly. The man did not have the time to think about those loopholes, nor did he have the time to think about them. For example, one of his men and the Hall Master were in the air and the other was underground. He had never seen the Hall Master before, so how would he know that the Hall Master was here? The Hall Master wouldn't have announced his family and shouted that he was here to help, would he? There was no time to think about this. The man only knew that he was saved. His initial determination to fight for his life disappeared in an instant. He couldn't die. If he could hold on for a little longer, this hateful vice-arresting officers would be finished. At this moment, the scene in front of him suddenly became illusory and unstable. Su Yu, who was not far away, had a splitting headache. He felt like he was about to explode. His willpower was too weak. Now that he was attacking a 10,000 stone realm expert with all his might, he instantly felt that he was overdrawn. However, he had enough time. Captain Lu was too close to the other party. At this moment, he also caught an opportunity. That fellow was actually a little distracted. In the moment of life and death, the other party was actually distracted. Su Yu had succeeded. Without a single roar, Captain Lu clenched his teeth tightly. His long saber was as swift as lightning as it slashed down. The explosion of the air shattered everything, and it also woke the man up. At this moment, there was no more subordinate or hall master in front of him. There was only the ferocious-looking Lu Pingshan, and only the saber that was as fast as lightning. Civilized master. This was the man's last thought. He could not believe that a civilized master would come to kill him. Could it be that Lu Wenyan had come? Let's die together. With his last bit of despair, the man roared and allowed the long blade to cleave his head open. Then, the long staff ruthlessly struck down. Boom! The long staff sent Lu Pingshan flying. Lu Pingshan's shoulder completely caved in, and his entire body was covered in blood. But at this moment, Lu Pingshan smiled. With a thud, the man, almost cut in half, fell to the ground. Dead. Captain. The people of Jifeng Hall cried out in alarm one after another, and then several thousand tons of weight rushed forward one after another to make a last stab and almost cut the man into meat paste. Only then did they run toward Lu Pingshan's side. Nothing. Lu Pingshan endured severe pain, disabled an arm just, killed 1,000,000 stone, worth it. Lu Pingshan's voice trembled slightly as he quickly said, continue searching. Finish him off and clean up the battlefield." After he finished speaking, he turned his head to look at Su Yu, who had his eyes closed. At this moment, Su Yu's face was deathly pale. Lu Pingshan grinned, and his smile was exceptionally ferocious. Su Long's son was indeed not a coward. More than 10 minutes later, Su Yu recovered a little. Although his face was still pale, it was much better than before. At this moment, Su Yu was not happy, only silent. 2 died, and more than 10 were injured. This was the result this time. The bodies of the sacrificed members of the Wind-Seizing Hall had been collected by the crowd. At this moment, they were in front of everyone. Captain Lu simply wrapped the wound on his shoulder. This arm could be considered completely crippled. He did not care too much and endured the grief. He grinned and said, "Well done. You killed 13 of them. One of them was even in the stone realm. It was a great achievement." Chapter 115, Comrade 4. Chapter 115, Comrade 4. As for the 2 brothers who left, Lu Pingshan's smile was a little sinister. His face was completely unrecognizable as he said, "We were already prepared when we entered the battlefield. If they died, Nan Yuan would receive 300,000 yuan in compensation, and the Great Xia Manor would receive another 200,000 yuan, 500,000 yuan, in addition to us brothers making up for it. The reward for meritorious service this time would be another 1,000,000 yuan in their hands. It's such a pity for Xiao Chen, he's still young, that old sly Zhou, he's not at a loss." Captain Lu grimaced, unable to say whether he was laughing or crying. His face was stained with blood, and his smile was twisted. Xiao Chen was dead. The young Wind Constable who had been talking to Su Yu in the car was the first to be killed. He was the first to discover the other party, hiding on the roof of the small courtyard storeroom. Therefore, the other party went all out and did not hold back at all. He killed the other party with a single strike. Su Yu, who was standing at the side, remained silent. He had seen dead people before, but Brother Chen was still talking to him just now. Now that the person was gone, he had an indescribable feeling. His father was fighting in the crueler battlefield of the heavens. It was 100 times crueler than this. Myriad races religion, myriad races of the heavens. Su Yu muttered in his heart. At this moment, he suddenly hated the 6th-generation prefect of the civilized academy. He had heard that, the 6th-generation prefect was going to recruit the beasts of the myriad races. At this moment, he suddenly did not want to go to the civilized academy. He did not want to stay in the same academy as the beasts of the myriad races. He suddenly understood why Xia Longwu had so strongly rejected the beasts of the myriad races from entering the Great Xia Academy. When he saw the soldiers who had sacrificed themselves and the comrades who had sacrificed themselves, even if it was Su Yu, he could not help it. He could not bear it. The 10,000 clans were only their dogs. Now that the owner of the dog had come, he still had to enter the school openly and study together with them. Su Yu gritted his teeth. He did not want to stay together with those beasts. At this moment, he did not have any thoughts of making a meritorious deed. He did not have any thoughts of obtaining merit points right away. He only had one thought. These beasts should be exterminated. At the side, Captain Lu walked over at some point and patted his shoulder with his blood-stained left hand. He smiled and said, "Well done. From now on, you will be our comrade-in-arms, a comrade-in-arms for life and death. The next time I see your father, I can call him an old comrade-in-arms." Su Yu grinned and forced a smile. He was somewhat unable to smile. "Don't think too much. We eat this bread and drink blood. Life and death must be seen through. It's not a loss even if we die. Of course, you are still young, so you should study hard in the academy, cultivate hard, become stronger, and kill more animals. This is the responsibility of your generation." Captain Lu said seriously, "Don't be afraid, and don't think that we are at a loss. It's worth it to exchange 2 people for 13. If we can kill several times more enemies in the heavenly battlefield, it will be a great profit. The myriad race's religion is just a disease of scabies. Which year does the great Xia manor not kill a river of blood? Captain Lu patted Suyu again, smiling malevolently. If you don't want to see people die, and if you don't want to see your comrades die in battle in front of you, then work hard. If you fly, then not one person will die today. We're old and disabled, and you still have hope and opportunity. Fly faster. The city lord is old, and Coach Lu is old. If you can fly back and lead Nanyuan in the future, perhaps, fewer people will die. Rising up. This was Captain Lu's hope for Suyu. Was rising up a disaster? It was too difficult. At the very least, this was the case in Nanyuan. Every year, many people would go to the great Xia manor to cultivate, but how many would rise up in the end? He was only trying to motivate Suyu, but he also felt that there was really hope for Suyu. 8th level of Kaiyuan. Even if this kid could not become a civilized master, in 10 to 20 years, he still had hope of rising up in the sky with his physical body and becoming another heaven's favorite in Nanyuan. A civilized master was too far away, but to soar into the sky. The hope was very, very high. How long had it been since the southern plains had a soaring expert? Suyu nodded his head heavily. He wanted to soar into the sky. No, he wanted to become even stronger. What his teacher didn't teach him, this squad was handed over to him today, life and death. The life and death of his comrades, the life and death of his comrades. The reason why he bathed in blood wasn't for anyone, not for any higher-ups, but for himself, for his comrades who were bathed in blood, for his comrades who were fighting ceaselessly in the heavens. Chapter 116, How Pretty You Look When You're Shameless. Chapter 116, How Pretty You Look When You're Shameless. Cleaning up the battlefield and searching for the remaining members of the 10,000 races. Soon, everything calmed down and the North team returned with injuries. In the car. This time, Suyu and Captain Lu were in the car. Captain Lu's left arm was stained with blood, and this iron-blooded man did not seem to feel anything. In the car, he even joked with Suyu, "Your father used to brag about how he killed 10,000 stones. The entire southern Yuan is about to know about it. Look at me. This time, I killed 10,000 stones. I'm not as crazy as your father." Suyu was originally a little sad, but this captain made him want to laugh. Captain Lu gave him a very serious feeling before, but now it was completely different. Suyu vaguely understood that he had received recognition. In the eyes of Captain Lu before, he was a burden. At a critical moment, he might even need people from the wind-seizing hall to save him and disrupt his deployment. But today, Suyu had made a meritorious contribution in killing Wanshi. If Suyu had not interrupted the other party's moment, even if Wanshi had still died today, the wind-seizing hall would have suffered a great loss. Suyu could not discuss his father, so he changed the topic and said, "Captain Lu. Just call me uncle." Captain Lu was no longer serious at this time. He was rather polite and said with a smile, "We're family. You're not a member of the wind-seizing hall. Don't be polite. Uncle Lu." Suyu was not pretentious. With some doubts, he said, "There are quite a lot of people from the Myriad clan school this time. There's also a man named Wanshi. If we had gathered together and joined hands to resist in the small courtyard, I don't think the wind-catching hall would have been able to take them down so easily, right?" Captain Lu nodded and said affirmatively, "Of course. If they were guarding the small courtyard and had Wanshi guarding it, as long as the people in front of them could hold on for a while, our North team would probably lose more than half of our men this time. Then. Do you want to ask why they are so stupid to scatter and run?" Lu Pingshan revealed a contemptuous smile, "Because they are afraid of death. Who in the Myriad clan isn't afraid of death? Guard. Guarding means that the people in front are going to risk their lives, why should I risk my life? In the face of a great disaster, everyone flies separately. If I don't guard and I run, then I have a chance to survive. But if I defend, then the people in front who are defending will definitely die. Lu Pingshan said disdainfully, the Myriad clan has elites and their strength is quite strong. But they don't have the heart to fight to the death. They don't have the will to die. Of course, there are a few crazy churches that have such combat divisions, but that's only because it's a large-scale war. For such a small team, don't expect them to risk their lives for anyone. It's okay to fight a smooth battle, but as long as they feel that there's a possibility of failure and a possibility of death, these people will instantly collapse. Lu Pingshan looked at Su Yu. He said seriously, that's why I said that the Myriad clan religion is just a scabies disease, and that's how it is. No matter how many experts they have, as long as they encounter a setback, they will immediately collapse. And a regular human army will definitely not be like this. A smooth battle can be fought, and a desperate battle can also be fought. A battle actually includes a force. Lu Pingshan looked at Su Yu, and his expression suddenly became solemn. As long as this force exists, even if you are weaker than your opponent, there is still hope for you to turn the tables. When you are in a desperate situation, you will be able to win with fewer people. No matter how many people you kill, you will not be able to defeat me. The elite human legions, such as the Great Xia Palace's Dragon Martial Guards, will not be able to collapse even if they fight to the last person. However, some of the smaller legions will lose more than 10% of their forces. A 100,000-strong army might completely collapse. On the battlefield, there are only a few who fight to the death. Lu Pingshan thought for a while and added, if you have the chance to go to the heavenly battlefield in the future, you will realize that if two 100,000-man legions meet, there will be a large number of casualties. The biggest casualties will not be from the direct battlefield, but from the enemy's pursuit when they collapse. Therefore, when human soldiers enter the heavenly battlefield, the first thing they are taught is not to collapse. Those who charge at the front lines are definitely veterans. They are veterans of more than 10 years, the most elite batch. Even if more than half of them die, they will not collapse. If the new soldiers charge at the front line, once the casualties are heavy, the entire army will be dragged down by them. There will be more than one or two who will be blown up by their own people. Su Yu nodded. Lu Pingshan had cleared his doubts. He had been wondering if the Myriad clan sect was panicking and if Wan Shi was a little stupid. Why did he choose to hide? He might as well lead his men to charge out. Perhaps he really had a chance to escape or even turn the tables. Now, he understood. The key was, fear of death. No one was not afraid of death. Weren't Lu Pingshan and the others afraid? They were also afraid. The key was their philosophy, perseverance, belief, and courage to fight. Uncle Lu, is that human army the strongest in the heavenly battlefield? Ahem, Lu Pingshan was a bit embarrassed. After thinking for a while, he said frankly, I'm afraid of misleading you. If you don't go to the heavenly battlefield, I can brag, but you might go, so I can't mislead you. In the grand heavens battlefield, the human army is very tenacious, and their combat power is also very strong. But to say that they are invincible, they have overestimated us. The god race, the demon race, the monster race, and even some small races have some elite legions. They are also very good at fighting. Lu Pingshan said in a deep voice, in the grand heavens battlefield, I once encountered a group of demon sky guards with 1,000 men. At that time, I served in the mountain quaking army. The mountain quaking army had 10,000 men, while the other side had 1,000 men. Most of them were tens of thousands of stones. When I met them in the Foamlong Gorge, both sides fought head-on. In the end, the mountain quaking army paid the price of 4,000 casualties and annihilated this group of devil sky guards. Lu Pingshan said with a sigh, the other party was really able to fight. In the end, I remember that there was only one expert who was still alive. At that time, there was still hope for him to escape, because our side also suffered heavy losses. In the end, that fellow launched the final charge. When he died in battle, he was facing us, not his back. Chapter 117, You Are So Shameless. Chapter 117, You Are So Shameless. In that battle, the mountain-quaking army was almost destroyed. In the end, the general rushed over and personally buried them in the foam-long gorge. Other than weapons and other spoils of war, their corpses were all buried there. Actually, collecting corpses was also a huge harvest. However, in that battle, although the demonic sky guards were enemies, they had fought well. In the end, the mountain-quaking army gave up on collecting corpses and buried them instead. Su Yu exhaled lightly. It turned out that on the battlefield of the heavens, the other 10,000 races also had such valiant legions that did not fear death. In fact, this was certain. However, the great Xia Manor's main propaganda was not about these things, but about how the human race was invincible on the battlefield. Lu Pingshan added, of course, such legions are very rare. They are all the elites of various races. The human race has legions that can fight, but there are also some weaker legions. It is impossible for every legion to be strong. We do not underestimate ourselves. When we are on the battlefield, we should not be overly confident. We think that the 10,000 races are just so. If we really think that way, it would be us charging into the nest of the 10,000 races. We wouldn't be entangled with them in the heavenly battlefield. Su Yu nodded. The two of them chatted as the carriage entered the city. The city was still calm. The small-scale battle outside the city didn't attract much attention. However, at this moment, there were a few more vehicles on the streets. They came from the Great Xia Manor. There were already people from the Great Xia Mansion rushing over. It wasn't long before the assessment. They should be here soon. Captain Lu also saw it. He said, "You don't have to worry. It doesn't matter if you don't participate in the assessment. This time, you assisted us in killing 1,000 stones. You also killed a person who was at the critical stage. In addition, you've rendered meritorious service in the past few times. Report all of them to the higher-ups. It won't be a big problem for you to enter Civilization University or Zhangjing University without the assessment." Chen Hao would probably go crazy if he heard this. Exempt from the examination. The kind of person who would be guaranteed a free pass. If Chen Hao knew about this, he would probably be moved by how different people's lives were. Bai Feng originally had this kind of quota. He gave it to Su Yu and Lu Yu, and then Su Yu himself made meritorious deeds to the point of exempting from the examination. All the opportunities were given to him alone. It was common sense for the strong to be strong, and the icing on the cake. Su Yu pondered for a moment and said, "Regarding the matter of assisting in killing Wan Shi, can Captain Lu only count the meritorious service for me? I'm afraid that if this gets out, I'll be taken revenge. After all, I'm just Kai Yuan, and I'm too eye-catching. If you don't want to add points, then it won't be a big problem." Lu Pingshan smiled and said, "Some organizations can only see meritorious service, but they can't see the specific source. The meritorious service system is under the control of the military. Other than the military, other organizations have no right to interfere. This is an organization directly under the manor head's jurisdiction. Not to mention the myriad clan cult having spies, unless they really infiltrated the military's higher-ups, no one will be able to find out." Su Yu heaved a sigh of relief. He wanted merit points, but he was worried that it would attract too much attention. This was not a good thing. A Kaiyuan assistant had killed Wan Shi. How did he do it? How much effort did he put in? If word really got out, what if Wan Shi from the Myriad clan sect even jumped into the air to kill him? Therefore, it was better to keep a low profile. Of course, merit points still had to be taken. On one hand, it was to raise his level. On the other hand, it was also for the merit points themselves. He could exchange it for some things that he needed. This time, you single-handedly killed the mid-stage of Qianjun realm. You'll get 2 merit points to assist you in killing 10,000 stones. The initial stage of the 10,000 stone realm usually starts with 10 merit points. However, we killed someone of a higher level, so the merit points will be doubled. In addition, we destroyed a stronghold, so there's an additional bonus. Lu Pingshan did not want to leave the impression that he was greedy for merit points. He said seriously, so this time, after killing 10,000 stones, the final merit points will be around 25 to 30 points. Of course, if you make a move out of the blue, then it'll really be 10 points. The merit points aren't fixed. You interfered with the other party in the end, so you contributed a lot. But Xiao Chen and the others. Su Yu, according to the rules, the dead have to be given a share. So even if it comes down, 5 merit points should be enough for you. 5 merit points. Su Yu was slightly stunned. It was not too little, but too much. He only interfered with the other party at the periphery. This was equivalent to killing 5 enemies at the initial stage of Qianjun. Uncle Lu. Lu Pingshan interrupted, don't think it's too little. Your merit reward this time should be around 7 points. In addition, the spoils of war cannot be distributed to you. You also understand this. Of course, if there is another operation in the future and the Wind Seizing Hall invites you to participate, you are qualified to participate in the distribution of the spoils of war. This was also the rule. Su Yu came here on his own this time. It was already very good that the Wind Seizing Hall could bring him along. He was not qualified to distribute the spoils of war. If there were, the people of the southern Yuan would have come here like a swarm of bees. However, if they encountered the Wind Seizing Hall's big operation, they would not have enough manpower. At this time, they would invite some people to participate. At that time, they would be qualified to participate in the distribution of the spoils of war. Lu Pingshan patted Su Yu's shoulder again and said with a smile, next time, if there are some tasks for small strongholds, I will ask someone to inform you. It can be considered an invitation. You can participate in the distribution of the spoils of war. This time, don't fight with other brothers. To invite a Kai Yuan to participate. This was something that had never happened before. In the past, if they really encountered trouble, they would have invited powerhouses above the level of Qianjun, but those below the level of Qianjun's 7th layer were almost impossible to be invited. Su Yu didn't say anything else. In fact, he felt that he had already given a lot. 7 merit points. In addition to the 3 merit points he had obtained from the Wind Seizing Hall, the Wind Seizing Hall had given him a total of 10 merit points for pursuing the Wan clan sect. Chapter 118, You're So Shameless. Chapter 118, You're So Shameless. Learning the language of 10,000 clans gave him 18 points, killing Qian Jun gave him 3 points, and Su Yu actually received 31 merit points. Of course, there were still 10 points left, not counting the 7 points he was about to receive. And the accumulated merit points were 28 points. Chen Hao's merit points were counted as Chen Hao's accumulated merit points, not counting Su Yu's. In the Yuan opening stage, accumulating 28 merit points was extremely difficult. Unless one had mastered 28 languages of the myriad clans, it was possible. As they spoke, they arrived at the Wind Seizing Hall. Everyone got off the car. The head of the Wind Seizing Hall, Zheng Hua, was waiting outside the door. When he saw Lu Pingshan and the others getting off the car, Zheng Hua nodded slightly. He glanced at Lu Pingshan's arm, and a hint of regret appeared in his eyes. Lu Pingshan's strength was at the critical stage, so he was not considered weak in the Wind Seizing Hall. Now that his right hand was crippled and his strength was greatly damaged, Lu Pingshan might have to retire early. After the 2 bodies were delivered, Zheng Hua sighed and bowed. He did not say anything and nodded at Su Yu, indicating for Lu Pingshan to go in and talk. Su Yu did not stay long and quickly left the wind-seizing hall. Southern Element Academy. Lu Wenyan also sighed. After sighing, he quickly cursed in a low voice, nonsense. He sighed that the wind-seizing hall had sacrificed 2 members and scolded Su Yu for being nonsense. His willpower was so weak, yet he actually dared to disturb Wuxia. He was courting death. If he was slightly careless and the other party's willpower wasn't weak, he would directly take the opportunity to counterattack. This bit of willpower of Su Yu's would be instantly defeated and he would become a madman and a fool. Fortunately, the other party was a fighter, so he did not have much to do with willpower. However, one had to know that many people could not continue studying in the civilized academy. If one were to switch to the path of fighters halfway through, many students of the civilized academy who were in the nurturing stage might switch to the path of fighters. With their willpower, if Su Yu were to encounter them, he would definitely die. Lu Wenyan could only rejoice that Su Yu did not encounter such a person this time. However, if it happened again and again, could it be that it happened again and again? Kaiyuan encountering 10,000 stones was still too dangerous. But, it's not bad. After scolding him, Lu Wenyan laughed again. At least this kid was responsible. At that moment, he was not so scared that he wet his pants. Instead, he volunteered to help. This was also a kind of responsibility. During the Kaiyuan stage, he assisted in killing a 10,000 stone. This kid is getting more and more outstanding. I'm a little reluctant to send him to Civilization University. The old man muttered, and then he couldn't help but curse. What qualifications does Bai Feng have to teach him? Let the 10,000 heavenly saints come. Cursing was one thing, but he quickly consoled himself, all right, keep a low profile. Bai Feng's potential is not bad. If it really can't be done, then let his teacher teach him. After muttering to himself for a while, Lu Wenyan picked up the communicator beside the table and hesitated for a moment. A moment later, Lu Wenyan dialed a number. Very soon, the call was picked up, but there was no sound. Lu Wenyan did not make a sound either. After a few dozen seconds of silence, Lu Wenyan opened his mouth and said, I'm a student, Su Yu. He has a lot of potential. When he goes to Civilization University, you, take care of him a little. Lu Wenyan, are you begging me? I'm not begging you. Lu Wenyan said angrily, I can't beg you. You're brainless and an idiot. I'm just asking you to take care of him. Take care of an outstanding student. The voice came from the other side again, you beg me, and I'll take care of him. Otherwise, I'll target him. This is the first time you've begged me in all these years. Beg my ass. You've learned to scold people in these few decades. Lu Wenyan was a little embarrassed and angry. He said angrily, Wu Yuehua, do you want to quarrel? Do you think that I, Lu Wenyan, can't find a few people in the Great Xia Mansion who are willing to help me? I can find them, but, are you willing to go look for them? On the other side of the phone, that person said calmly, besides me, who else can you look for, that junior brother of yours? The one surnamed Hong recently went to the Zhutian battlefield. I don't know if he will come back alive. Are you sure you want to look for him? He went to the heavenly battlefield. Yes, he might go to a newly discovered realm. I don't know when he will come back. Lu Wenyan frowned and was too lazy to ask any more questions. He quickly said, cut the crap. That's it. Also, are you F*King stupid? Who the F*CK asked you to return the merit points to me? Tell the myriad heaven sage to spit back what he ate from me. Lu Wenyan said angrily, 50,000 merit points, and that's not even taking into account all the deductions I've made over the years. It adds up to 60,000 to 70,000. Spit it back to me sooner or later, or else don't blame me for being impolite. Is it yours? Did you pay for the 50,000 merit points? Nonsense, if it's not mine, then is it yours? The other side was speechless. After a long while, he said, "When did you become so shameless?" "I've always been shameless." Lu Wenyan said angrily, "If I wanted to be shameless, I would have found a secluded place and lived in seclusion for the rest of my life. When I die of old age, why would I still stay in the great Xia mansion? If I wanted to be shameless, I wouldn't have called you. I would have been shameless long ago." A moment later, the person on the other side sighed, "Your shameless look. I really want to see it. Will you come back?" "I'm not going back." Lu Wenyan's tone was unpleasant. "What are you going back for? Are you going to be ridiculed when you go back?" "He doesn't want to see me go back either. If I go back, he'll target me all day long." Then Lu Wenyan quickly said, "I can't be bothered to talk about this anymore. I just need to take care of it. I'm worried that I'll be targeted, so I don't need to care about anything else. Oh right, I'm a little short of money recently. Just send me a few hundred drops of demon blood and let me use it to cast my body. I'll pay you back when I have the money." Lu Wenyan. "I really want to see how shameless you are. How about I send it to you personally? I want to see if you dare to say it again in front of me. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Lu Wenyan was so embarrassed that he flew into a rage. "Get someone to send it over. If you don't want to send it over, then forget it. Do you think I lack these few drops of God and demon blood? I don't. I think you don't need to waste them. Do. The call was hung up. Lu Wenyan was stunned for a moment. Then, he rubbed his old face with all his strength. His old face was red. How embarrassing. I actually said such a thing. When did I become so shameless? It's all because of old Wang's influence. Lu Wenyan sighed. The old mansion head should take the blame. He had had too much influence over the past few decades. Chapter 119, Rogue Leader 1. Chapter 119, for Rogue Leader 1. Su family. 1 drop of Yuan Qi liquid, 4 drops of iron-winged bird essence blood, 10 merit points, 30,000 cash, origin opening technique, thunder essence blade, blood condensing blade, e-god technique, 1000 June chapter, 1000 June technique bone fragment, a complete technique bone fragment, plus a medium-sized yellow grade standard long blade. This was all of Su Yu's wealth at the moment. Everything was placed on the table. Su Yu had been reading it the entire time and was deep in thought. He had been deep in thought ever since he returned from Wind Seizing Hall. He was reflecting on whether he had been too calculative. Previously, he had felt that he was willing to spend money. These few days, he had nearly spent all of his belongings. He felt that 8th level of Kaiyuan was enough. As a student who had yet to graduate from a medium-grade academy, was his strength not enough? Therefore, he barely touched his merit points. It was still 10 points. If he had not used the Yuan Qi liquid twice, he would not have used it. But today, Su Yu was reflecting. Money was something that could not be spent. If he kept it, how long would he keep it? Wait until he became stronger before he exchanged for the things he needed. But now that he could not bear to spend money, how could he quickly become stronger? I have to quickly cash in my money and turn it into strength. Another 7 merit points will be transferred to my account soon. My willpower has been stuck at around 19%. I'm a little fuzzy even when I'm reading that fragment, and the picture book in my head hasn't been opened much. Su Yu had rarely opened the picture book before. On average, it would only be opened once every 5 to 6 days. Sometimes, it would even be opened once every 10 days. He felt that it was too extravagant. Opening it once a day was equivalent to at least 30,000 cash or a little merit points. He could not bear it. Without Yuan Qi, how can I cultivate? Without Yuan Qi, how can I cultivate saber techniques, how can I cultivate acupoints, how can I quickly become stronger? 17 merit points. If I were to reach the Myriad Stone Realm, killing 2 early-stage Myriad Stone Realm cultivators would be enough. Or, killing 1 would be enough. But if I were to open Yuan, I would have to kill more than 10,000 kilograms. Every time, it would be a risk. At this moment, Suyuk seemed to have understood something, but he also seemed to not understand anything. But at least he knew one thing. Resources, these things had to be quickly converted into cash. Becoming stronger was the foundation. No student in Nanyuan had the ability to compete with him, but what about the Great Xia residence? Putting aside the Great Xia residence, putting aside the identity of a student, what was 8th level of Kaiyuan? What was 19% full will accumulation? There are still 14 days until the assessment. From today onwards, I will open the atlas once a day and absorb vitality to cultivate. 14 days, 14 merit points consumption. Of course, he had 4 drops of his own. 10 merit points were enough. The rest could be exchanged and kept on him just in case. Otherwise, when he died, why would he keep the merit points? 11 days later, Suyu did not leave his house again. He did not even go to the academy to exchange for blood essence. Instead, he asked Chenhao to help him exchange for it. He used all 10 merit points to exchange for it. 14 drops of blood essence were all iron-winged bird blood essence. If not for the fact that he did not have any money on him, Suyu even wanted to buy some yuan qi liquid to aid his cultivation, so that he would always be in a state of abundant yuan qi. He really wanted to sell his house and sell it for 1 million yuan, then buy 10 drops of yuan qi liquid to cultivate. Unfortunately, reality did not allow it, so he could only give up on this idea. It was also good to have a place to stay, in case he did not even have a place to stay. Just as Su Yu was wholeheartedly cultivating, the Great Xia Manor was in turmoil. The dragon martial guards had retreated, losing nearly 1,000. However, they had brought back a large amount of resources and a large amount of natural treasures, returning with a full load. However, the dragon martial guards did not feel happy. Great Xia Mansion. Mansion Master's Mansion. The entrance of the mansion was a huge square. At this moment, a 189 tall man stood in the middle of the white jade road. He was angry and wore black armor. He did not carry any weapons. The man looked at the mansion not far away. That was the center of power of the Great Xia Mansion. This general requests to see Lord Xia Ho. The man's voice was loud. Around them, the few mansion guards all kept their mouths shut, as if they did not see him. They all lowered their heads, as if no one was talking around them. Lord Xia Ho, the Dragon Martial Guards class teacher, this general is here to pay the order. A moment later, an old man flew over. Looking at the tall man, he said softly, "General, Lord Xia Ho said that you must be tired from the journey. Go back and rest early." Rest? The tall man said coldly, "The Marquis doesn't want to see me." The Marquis is already resting. Resting in broad daylight? The tall man shouted, "Is the Great Xia Manor free? Deputy Manor Head, don't you have any government affairs to deal with?" "General," the old man said softly, "the Marquis doesn't want to see the general because he doesn't want to have a conflict. Since the military order has been given, there's no need for the general to hold a grudge." "Nonsense." The tall man rebuked angrily, "Hold a grudge? The front line sacrificed nearly 1,000 dragon martial guards. Just a military order is enough to make me feel at ease." The old man thought for a moment. After a long while, he said, "General, the Marquis knows that this military order is inappropriate. In fact, the Marquis was also deceived by someone. During the ceremony that day, the 10,000 heavenly saints instigated the Marquis. I'm sure you also know about the matter. The Marquis doesn't know the situation at the front line, so how would he know the truth? The 10,000 heavenly saints can speak eloquently, but the Marquis took it seriously. That's why he had the order to withdraw the troops." The old man sighed, the 10,000 Heavenly Saints is in charge of the Great Xia Civilization Academy. Most of the civilization masters in the army graduated from the Great Xia Civilization Academy. Without the manor head, the 10,000 Heavenly Saints has great authority. The civilization masters are under his control and won't withdraw their troops. Once the civilization masters leave, will the Dragon Martial Guards really fight to the death with the Tianyi celestial race? Chapter 120, Rogue Leader 2. Chapter 120, Rogue Leader 2. 10,000 Heavenly Saints. The tall man coldly said this name and said in an icy tone, his hands are too long. He even dares to interfere in the military. Isn't he afraid of having his claws broken? If the manor head wasn't in closed-door cultivation, he naturally wouldn't dare. The old man sighed, the manor head is in closed-door cultivation. He has the support of the Seeker realm. How could he be afraid of the Marquis and the General? The tall man was silent. So at this time, the Marquis is also very regretful, but he has already been deceived, and there's nothing the Marquis can do. The old man sighed, at this time, the Marquis can only remain silent. Could it be that he has fallen out with the 10,000 Heavenly Saints? As the old man spoke, he said, General, the army still relies on civilized teachers. As for the 10,000 Heavenly Saints, we have no way to control them. What a joke. The Great Xia Manor is still the Great Xia Manor. The tall man said the same thing as Xia Bing, this is the Great Xia Manor, not the Quest Realm. After saying that, the man was silent for a while, and he said coldly, did the general promise this before he went into seclusion? This. No, the manor lord went into seclusion before the ceremony. The tall man looked at the old man, and after a long while, he said, Elder Hu, the Great Xia Manor is in charge of the army. You are in charge of government affairs, and the 10,000 Heavenly Saints is doing whatever he wants. Are you and the manor lord really not in agreement? The old man laughed, how can that be? You even need to hide it from me? The man was a little displeased. He was not someone else, but a vice-general of the Dragon Martial Guards, a Shanghai realm expert. Xia Longwu was in the Great Xia Manor, and he was in charge of almost all the battles the Dragon Martial Guards went out to. There really isn't. The old man said seriously, Wan Tiansheng is taking advantage of the manor head's seclusion to seize power. Then annihilate him. General, be careful with your words. The Civilized Academy is the Civilized Academy of Great Xia. He, 10,000 Heavenly Saints, is also the leader of the Civilized Masters of Great Xia who was arranged by Chiu Suo Realm. You can't speak recklessly. Chiu Suo Realm. The man murmured and then snorted coldly, Chiu Suo Realm has been in seclusion for many years. 10,000 Heavenly Saints interferes with the military affairs of Great Xia Manor. Chiu Suo Realm, do you understand? As long as Chiu Suo Jing doesn't say anything, he will become the leader of the Great Xia government's civilized masters. We have no way to change that. The old man shook his head and continued, Marquis can only limit it. That's why he has cut 30% of the Civilized Academy's funds. He has already reached the limit. Cutting the Civilized Academy's funds, nonsense. The tall man reprimanded him and said unhappily, civilized masters are civilized masters, and the 10,000 Heavenly Saints are 10,000 Heavenly Saints. With the weakening of the funds, the number of civilized masters will be reduced. The civilized masters on the heavenly battlefield are weak. How can they fight the enemy? He could be unsatisfied with 10,000 Heavenly Saints, but he did not want to implicate the Civilization Institute. That would cause the number of civilized masters to decrease and affect the war on the front lines. 10,000 Heavenly Saints will have a way to solve it. He promised that the number of civilized masters who graduate every year, including those who join the army, will not decrease. If it is not enough, he will send all the experts from the Heart Cultivation Pavilion to replace them. The Heart Cultivation Pavilion was synonymous with the high-end strength of the Great Xia Civilization Academy. Most of the elders of the Civilization Academy were cultivating in it. Ling Yun and the Mountain Sea Realm experts were not lacking. They were the highest-end combat strength of the Great Xia Academy, the same as Ling Hai Lu of the War Academy. Since the 10,000 Heavenly Saints Association even said this, the tall man had nothing to say. After a while, the man said coldly, "Forget it this time. If there is a next time, when the general is outside, military orders will not be accepted. The general will decide on his own." The old man did not advise him. He watched the man leave and turned around to return to the hall behind him. At this moment, a chubby man was eating in the hall. Without raising his head, he said, "He left. He left. He went to look for the 10,000 heavenly saints. I don't know." The chubby old man raised his head at this moment and said with a smile, "It will be fun if they fight." "Marquis, why didn't you tell General Zhao?" The old man asked, and the chubby old man said with a smile, "Let's watch the show." The old man frowned slightly and quickly said, "Marquis, this isn't appropriate, right? It'll cause more trouble." "I'm not afraid of trouble." The chubby old man burped and had no image to speak of. He said lazily, "Isn't the myriad heaven sage very awesome? Let old Zhao add fuel to the fire. Also, the myriad heaven sage's hands are indeed too long. He dares to interfere everywhere. Let old Zhao beat him up." Of course, old Zhao will definitely not be able to beat him. I don't need to see this to know. However, it's a good thing to make that guy more troublesome. But the old man wanted to say more, but the fat old man burped again and yawned, "I'm going to take a nap." If Wan Tianxing can't even handle this small problem, how can he talk about reform? Changing the Great Xia manner. It's easy to say. The fat old man had a disdainful look on his face. Is it really that easy? Why wait until now? The Great Xia manner has so many years of tradition. What can be obtained on the battlefield will not be obtained through the second method. It's a little silly. Actually, I also think that little Xia is a little idiotic. His IQ is a little low, but his fist is big. The fat old man sighed. His fist is big, and he hit you until you hurt. He's just like his grandfather. The old man is also like this. His IQ is not enough, and he's all muscle. What's the use of reasoning with you? The fat old man shook his head. The old man's expression changed for a moment, but he did not reply. Only an unfilial son like you would dare to talk about the king of Great Xia like this. The others would not dare to speak carelessly. So if the 10,000 heavenly saints can't even change them, why would he change the Great Xia manner? The Great Xia manner is not just a few people. Hundreds of millions of people have been led astray by these birdmen. When they encounter trouble, they will chop, chop, dry, 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 kill, 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 kill. Chapter 121, Rogue Leader 3. Chapter 121, Rogue Leader. The fat old man said disdainfully, "I know they only have muscles but no brains, but I can't do anything about it. I can only watch and get beaten up if I don't like it. I was beaten up many times when I was young, so what else can I do?" Xia Longwu, that unfilial son, even dared to beat his uncle. What else can I do? If the myriad heaven saint wants to reform, then he should think of a way to solve it himself. Old Zhao is also brainless. He only has muscles, so I can't be bothered to reason with him. Let the myriad heaven saint solve the problem himself. After the fat old man finished speaking, he stood up and walked around. Also, from today onwards, give a military order. The Great Xia Manor will go on a 30-70 split. The Great Xia Manor will pay 70%, and they will settle 30% by themselves. They will use the spoils of war as a deduction. They are not allowed to sell the spoils of war privately. The Xia Clan Trading Company will purchase them all at a discount. Marquis. The old man said softly, "It's too fast. It's not appropriate. This will cause the house army and the dragon martial guards to not be pure anymore. I'm worried that they will take the opportunity to sell military goods on the battlefield. We have to think twice about this. That's right, so I've thought about it. The dragon martial guards, house guards, and the demon suppression army will all set up a small department. The business department will be taken over by the people from the Xia Trading Company. They will only be responsible for fighting, and the other matters will be handled by the people from the Xia Trading Company. Marquis. The old man frowned. If we really want to set it up, we should send people in the name of the Great Xia House. Aren't the people of the Great Xia Mansion people from the Xia Clan Trading Company? The fat old man said in surprise, aren't they? Do you still want to clarify things with me? No, Marquis, what I mean is that we can't use the name of the trading company, or else the military force will deteriorate. That's simple. The people sent over by the Xia Clan Trading Company are no longer people of the Xia Clan Trading Company. From today onwards, they will be people of the Great Xia Mansion. Just give them a name. Oh right, in the future, you can pay the salary yourself. No, the Great Xia Mansion will pay. The fat old man did not feel the slightest bit embarrassed. He quickly made the decision. The old man did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, after thinking for a moment, he nodded and said, then that's it. This is still better than the Xia Clan Trading Company's name. After saying this, the old man continued, Marquis, the War God Hall has sent an order. They hope that the corpses of the heavenly celestial race that the Great Xia Clan captured previously will be sent over. Before he could finish, the fat old man suddenly jumped up and scolded, what the **ck do you want to eat? Little Xia killed them himself, and he killed the celestials that sneaked in. It has nothing to do with them. But. No buts. The fat old man said angrily, you asked my father to take it himself. **ck, it's not like a group of old guys can't kill themselves. Why are they digging their food in our mouths? What are they thinking? What's wrong with the War God Hall? It's amazing. Isn't it just a boorish hall formed by a bunch of old guys who won't die? Research my ass, it's a waste of money. Even those in the quest realm know that they have to research and kill themselves. These boorish guys have made a new name for themselves, and they even took the opportunity to extort our resources. Just let them die. The old man's heart was tired. Was it really okay for you to scold them like that? Your father is also one of them. The War God's Temple, the Quest Realm, the two sacred places of the human realm. The civilized masters entered the Quest Realm, and the warriors entered the War God's Temple. Of course, not everyone could enter. The Great Xia Emperor certainly had the qualifications. Moreover, this War God's Temple was created by the invincible experts of their generation. Now, you want to ask your son and grandson for some sponsorship? Aren't you being too unreasonable as a son? The fat old man cursed for a while and soon calmed down. He thought for a moment and said, send it over, but, ask them to get a few thousand corpses of gods and demons to exchange for it. After all, they killed a large number of them, and they are not worth anything. These are the corpses of top-tier experts. Ask them to send 3,000 to 5,000 Mountain Sea Realm corpses over. Cough cough. The old man wanted to say something, but he held it back after a long while. The fat old man continued, I know if they have it, but they are asking for too much. It doesn't matter if they can't give it to us. How about this, let them exchange a few secret realms for it. I heard that the old man hacked a space back a few years ago from God knows where, and the great Zhou King also hacked one a few years ago. Just send them all over. Marquis. This won't work, right? Can they agree? The fat old man stomped his feet. He said angrily, go talk to them. Damn it, if you don't want to give them, then go cry. Arrange a few thousand people to wait outside the War God Hall. If you don't give them, then cry. Cry them to death. They want their own things, but they don't want to pay. What are they thinking? They don't want to do it. A bunch of old fellows. They've eaten their fill, but they don't think about their descendants. We're still hungry. If my old man doesn't give it to them, just say that I've become the great Ming King's grandfather. That old thing will die of anger. The old man couldn't hold on any longer. He was afraid that the great Xia King would silence him. Are you even human? If you call him the great Ming King's grandfather, what should the great Xia King call that person? Just be a human. The old man didn't dare to say any more and quickly said, I understand, Marquis. Then I'll arrange for someone to do it. Oh right, how are the other corpses to be distributed? The Civilization Academy has requested that all of them be sent over for research. Get the 10,000 heavenly saints out of here. The fat old man had a fierce expression on his face, but the old man was so angry that he wanted to bare his teeth. Don't be so fierce. When you're fierce, you're like a fat cat protecting its food. Send one over. The fat old man didn't care what he thought, he quickly said, it's fine if you send it over. Get the 10,000 heavenly saints to graduate 80 civilization masters for me this year. If one of them is missing, I'll settle the score with him. If it's not enough, then get him to join the Heart Cultivation Pavilion. If he dares to swallow my celestial corpses, he won't have a single cent for the second half of the year. He'll think of a way to go himself. Chapter 122, Rogue Leader 4. Chapter 122, Rogue Leader 4. Okay. The old man quickly agreed and continued, over at Zhangjin College. No, just give me a few drops of blood essence to finish the job. A bunch of brainless people. Why would they want corpses? Can they eat them? The fat old man's mouth was very sarcastic. He did not stop swearing. After he finished swearing, he returned to the main topic. Over at Zhangjin College, if we send those rookies who have never seen blood into the army, I will cut their funding by 50% in the second half of the year. And on the side of the Internal Affairs College, hurry up and train people. The grassroots are lacking a lot of professionals. Oh right, is the hidden class that they set up effective? On the side of the Myriad Clan Church, how many people have infiltrated and have they found the treasure vault? If they can't find it anymore, they can leave. It's quite a lot of money. And on the side of the Scientific Research College, I had them build war airships 50 years ago. Those who can fly, carry people, and bring thousands of soldiers to the heavenly battlefield, what the hell are they doing? They haven't built them yet, are they just for show? If it doesn't work, I'll cut the funding. The old man listened, and the most common sentence he heard was, cut the funding. He calculated for a moment, and after a long time, he couldn't help but say, Marquis, this way, we can save about 300 billion this year. That much? The fat old man was stunned for a moment, then his eyes lit up as he said, all right, give me an order. It's best if we make them unable to complete the mission and directly reduce it. 80% of the treasury, the remaining 20% goes to me, the labor fee. Marquis, something will happen. What does it matter? The fat old man said indifferently, we have to force them a little, or else do you think they will pay attention? They are all sneaky. Putting everything else aside, just take the Institute of Civilization as an example. The 10,000 heavenly saints has hidden a batch of elite students and isn't letting them out. Isn't it a waste to keep them in the institute? Every year, there will be 30 more civilized masters. He will be able to produce them. If this goes on, the institute will be emptied in a few years. What about talent cultivation? The old man didn't agree. Everyone knew that the 10,000 heavenly saints had left the elite students behind. However, those elite students had other uses as well. The talent cultivation at the back, some fights over secret realms, and some secret research all depended on these people. Then he'll think of a way on his own. What does that have to do with me? The fat old man didn't care too much. He said indifferently, I'm not the real man or head. I'm acting as an agent. Do you understand acting as an agent? If things get messy, I'll go to the War God Hall for protection and let Xia Longwu settle it himself. What irresponsible words. The old man was speechless and had a bitter expression on his face. Dealing with Lord Xia Ho was much more tiring than dealing with Xia Longwu. At this moment, the fat old man had already walked to the backyard. Seeing that the old man was still following him, he said in surprise, "Why are you still following me? Old Hu, are you all right? I'm taking a nap and you want to accompany me? You old hooligan, why don't you scram?" The old man had decided that he would never come here again if he had nothing else to do. Xia Longwu would not come out of his closed-door cultivation, so he would not interact with this old man. Xia Longwu was still very respectful to him. He was in charge of the government affairs of the Great Xia government and was also considered to have a high position and authority. In addition, he was very old, so Xia Longwu relied on him very much and respected him very much. In the end, when he came to Lord Xia, he was not even comparable to his grandson. He turned around and was about to leave. After taking a few steps, the old man suddenly turned around and asked, "What did the Myriad Clan Training Academy of the Myriad Heaven Sage say? Just let him open it." As the fat old man walked into the house, he said, "Special matters are specially handled. Those Myriad Clan students will live in houses and build the best ones for me. If they spend money, they will live in them. If they don't spend money, they will live in the toilets for me. They will eat the best food and eat the best meat. If they don't want to eat, they will spend money to buy other things for me. The supply of God and devil meat, am I good enough? Who dares to say that the humans receive the best treatment? I want 10 times the cultivation method merit points and 10 times the merit points for killing their own clansmen. Let me see if there are any fellows who killed their own clansmen. Perhaps their own clansmen will come and be killed, that would be interesting. Myriad Sage's methods are too gentle. What's there to be afraid of? Since those fellows have come, they are here to achieve their goals. If they don't achieve their goals, they won't leave. What's there to be afraid of? The fat old man had already entered. As he closed the door, he exhorted, "I won't take the blame for the Academy's funding cuts. Spread the word that the money has been spent on the Myriad Clan Training Academy." Myriad Sage did this. Let Myriad Sage take the blame himself. Oh right, remember to tell Myriad Sage that if he really runs out of money, he can borrow from me. Just give me some interest. I'm not lacking in money. The old man pretended not to hear anything and left quickly. He was afraid that he would not be able to bear listening any longer. Chapter 123, Assessment was about to begin. Chapter 123, Assessment was about to begin. Time flew by, and the great Xia Manor was in an uproar. The small town of Nanyuan wasn't affected much, but as the higher education assessment approached, the small town began to get busy. Nanyuan Academy. In the large conference room. At this moment, the conference room was filled with people. Lu Wenyan sat at the front left side of the conference room, writing and drawing with his head lowered. He kept a very low profile and didn't say a word. The person in charge of the meeting was not the old mansion master, but a man in his 30s. He looked around with a cold expression. He said, "The higher education examination is about to begin. Under the orders of the Great Xia Mansion, the Quest Realm, and the War God Hall, the higher education examination will be coordinated by the Great Xia Mansion Strengthening Education Department. Do any of you have any questions?" The Strengthening Education Department was responsible for the annual college examination. Its authority was not big, but it was not small either. In the meeting room, there were teachers from the various universities, as well as officials from the Great Xia government and the Southern Yuan government. The reason why they chose to hold the meeting at the Southern Yuan University was because the Southern Yuan University was the largest transfer base for students from the Southern Yuan. There were very few people from the other primary schools who could pass the assessment. As the man's voice fell, someone raised his hand to signal. When the man looked over, he said, "I have a question. The Great Xia government's policy has changed this year. Is there a unified standard for the assessment of foreign students and local students?" The man quickly replied, "Foreign students. According to the previous registration, there are a total of 418 people, and there are 2,892 local students from the Southern Element. Foreign Civilization and War Academy admit 40 people, and local students admit 200 people. Civilization and War were two major university systems. There were more than two. War Academy included the Great Xia War Academy, Longwu War Academy, Wind Suppression Academy, Sea War Academy, and many other institutions. Civilization academies also included the Great Xia Civilization Academy, the Nine Heavens Civilization Academy, and the Tao-Seeking Civilization Academy. The places Suyu and the others mentioned usually referred to the Great Xia Civilization Academy or the Great Xia War Academy. These were the two top academies in the Great Xia Academy, and the Dragon War Academy was ranked third. After the man finished talking about the number of people, he continued, "The admission ratio is here. The standards are uniform, the assessments are uniform, and in the end, the various academies will lower their scores to admit the Southern Element students." These words were a little disheartening. Lu Wenyan and the old prefect did not say anything. The Southern Element students were not as good as the students from the Great Xia Manor and other large cities. That was for sure. Therefore, they had to lower their points to admit them every year. Otherwise, not many would be able to pass the examination. However, under such circumstances, the man's words made people feel a little embarrassed. 200 places, including all the places from the various war academies and civilization academies. 200 people was not too many. The remaining people would either not enter the Internal Affairs Academy or the Scientific Research Academy, or they would simply find another way out. The old manor head waited for him to finish speaking before he waved his hand and gestured. He hurriedly said, "Director Sun, how many students will the Great Xia Civilization Academy, Great Xia War Academy, and Longwu War Academy admit in the Southern Yuan this year?" The man did not reply. He turned to look at the few people who had not spoken up. "Researcher Huang, how did your academies decide?" On the right, a young man who was reading with his head lowered raised his head when he heard this. He smiled and said calmly, "The Great Xia Civilization Academy has an old rule. Those with 200 points or more can apply. Nanyuan City is weak, lower grade admission, 180 points and above will be accepted." The head of the academy let out a sigh of relief. Luckily, Nanyuan did not raise the difficulty, and it was the same as before. Great Xia War Academy, 200 points and above will be accepted, lower grade 180 points. Longwu War Academy, 180 points and above will be accepted, lower grade 160 points. The people from the two war institutions didn't speak much. After saying one sentence to the young man, they all shut up. After the officials from the Department of Education and Strength heard this, they looked at the old manor head. "Manor head Wang, do you have any questions?" "No." The old manor head responded. Lu Wenyan didn't speak before, but at this moment, he interjected, "I have a question. Su Yu and Lu Yu are the escorts of Bai Feng from Civilization University. According to the rules, these two people are not included in the list of Nanyuan students. Nanyuan can accept two students who are slightly inferior." On the other side, researcher Huang raised his head again, "Coach Lu, according to the rules, you can. However, almost all the students who are sent up like this every year are eliminated. It's a waste of time and life. Why should Coach Lu delay the future of those people?" Lu Wenyan said calmly, "Give them a chance. Even a fish needs a chance to jump through the dragon gate. Then follow Coach Lu. However, since Su Yu and Lu Yu have Bai Feng as escorts, they have to pass the examination. They have to be above 180 points in the grade reduction assessment. Coach Lu, you don't have any objections, right? No. Lu Wenyan did not have any objections. With Su Yu and Lu Yu's results, they would be able to pass the normal examination, let alone lower their grades. The young man did not speak anymore and continued reading. In reality, it was not books, but the summary of the names of the students in the Southern Element examination. And at this moment, the page that he flipped open was Su Yu. Su Yu was at 5th level of the Origin Opening Realm. He had passed the examination in 18 languages of the myriad clans. He had accumulated 21 merit points. His overall score was 300 points, middle or lower. This was information from more than a month ago, and it had not been updated yet. The man looked at it for a while before flipping through it. There was a smile on his face, but he did not say anything. The information from a month ago had not been updated yet. Was Nan Yuan prepared to be the final student? There was not much meaning to it. Nan Yuan was too small. No matter how well he hit it, it was just an ordinary student in the Great Xia manner. The student that Bai Feng accepted in advance. I hope that there is something special about him. The young man thought to himself. Before Su Yu entered the academy, he had already attracted the attention of many people. Before he arrived, many people had asked him to take a look to see if there was anything special about him. Chapter 124, Assessment was around the corner. Chapter 124, Assessment was around the corner. Even though Bai Feng had accepted the candidates in advance, it did not mean that he could not transfer to someone else. If the candidates wanted to transfer to someone else, how could Bai Feng have any objections? Whether Su Yu was a genius that had not been discovered, or whether Bai Feng had really randomly recruited him, one could tell just by looking at him. If he was a mediocre talent, then he would be treated as a joke. If he was a genius, then it was likely that there would be some people who would try to poach him. Above, when Director Sun saw that everyone was no longer giving their opinions, he said, then prepare and wait for the assessment. Nanyuan City is in charge of security. The examinees will gather in case the myriad religion attacks. Yes. Below, the commander of the city guards quickly responded. Director Sun nodded slightly, then looked at Xia Bing and said with a smile, Director Xia, the Dragon Martial Guards should also cooperate with Nanyuan to do the security work. Yes. Xia Bing did not say much. He did not look at Director Sunday. Instead, he nodded slightly at the Dragon Martial Academy's recruitment teacher across from him. The Dragon Martial Guards and the Dragon Martial Academy had a close relationship. Many of the teachers of the Dragon Martial Academy were retired soldiers of the Dragon Martial Guards. The two knew each other. At this moment, the teachers of the Dragon Martial Academy nodded slightly when they saw the situation. Soon, the meeting ended. Everyone left. Xia Bing was one step behind, and the teacher from Dragon Martial Academy was also slowly falling behind. Old Xia, have you been living well in the Southern Yuan these few years? Generally. Other than the previous attack by the Myriad clan cult that was a little interesting, there were other times when birds were idle. Xia Bing felt a little stifled. He quickly said, let's not talk about this. There are a few good seedlings in the Southern Yuan. You should pay attention. This was especially so for Su Yu. He was strong, bold, and meticulous. A few days ago, he even did something big. Lu Wenyan was bent on sending him to the Institute of Civilization. He didn't want to tell anyone about it. Fortunately, I was stationed here. What big thing? Cooperating with the wind-seizing team and killing 1,000 stones. Xia Bing's voice was very soft, keep this a secret. As long as our Dragon Martial Academy knows about it, it's fine. If word gets out, both of us will be unlucky. This is a bad rule. I only told you about it because we're on the same side. Think of a way to recruit this kid. The teacher was a little surprised. Cooperate? The wind-seizing hull actually needs Kaiyuan's cooperation. He's not just Kaiyuan. He should have already sketched out the divine text. Xia Bing quickly said, when Bai Feng came last time, he transcribed the text of will for him. He might have already sketched out the divine text completely. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to use the power of the divine text. As soon as he said this, the teacher's eyes lit up. Really? Bai Feng has only been here for 2 months, right? He sketched out the divine text after transcribing the text of will once. He completed the complete sketching of the divine text in less than 2 months. It should be. Of course, Lu Wenyan might have taught some basics before. Then he's also a genius. The recruitment teacher had an excited look on his face. It was not that he had never seen a genius before, but he had never intended to recruit any geniuses in the first place. How could he not be excited when a genius suddenly appeared out of nowhere? Old Xia, thank you very much. Don't worry, I won't spread this matter out. I've tricked you, brother. The recruitment teacher said, he said excitedly, our dragon martial guards have always wanted to nurture our own civilized masters. The Dragon Martial Academy also opened a civilized master class, but in the end, they couldn't produce any talents. They were all chosen by the Great Xia Civilized Academy. This time, let's intercept them. A genius who had outlined the divine text. And it was a complete divine text. If this was in the Great Xia Academy, it would have been known by the Great Xia Civilized Academy long ago, and they would have been admitted in advance. Of course, it was the same for Su Yu. However, Bai Feng was afraid that others would snatch his student, so he wouldn't tell anyone. When Xia Bing saw that he was excited, he thought for a moment and said, Old Xia, it's one thing to recruit students, but I actually don't want to scam this kid. I also know the situation of our Dragon Martial University Civilization Master class. My idea is that if this kid really has this talent, we can do the physical cultivation ourselves. The cultivation of a civilization master, do you think the school can get the middle and high-level researchers from the Dragon Martial Guards to come back and teach them? You don't have to say that. Old Xie chuckled and said, General Zhao has lost his temper this time. He's in a bad mood with Governor Wan. Governor Wan wants to use civilized masters to stop us. General Zhao said that he will increase the cultivation of civilized masters in the Dragon Martial Academy this year. Those civilized masters in the army have nothing to do now, so they will come to the Dragon Martial Academy to guide their followers. Really? Xia Bing was overjoyed. Then there won't be any problems. Oh right, when you come into contact with that kid, mention his father. His father, Su Long, is a veteran of the Demon Suppression Army. He was summoned back not long ago. He's from the Demon Suppression Army. Once these words were said, Old Xie suddenly scolded, the Demon Suppression Army is our territory. Lu Wenyan has gone too far. He actually stole our people. The Dragon Martial Guards, Demon Suppression Army, and Government Army were all part of the same family. Old Xie was very angry at the moment that his own disciples and soldiers were actually targeted by the Civilized Academy. Xia Bing coughed lightly and didn't reply. Even though he said that, he knew what the civilized teacher class of the Dragon Martial Academy was like. It was only normal for them to enter the Civilized Academy. He was just a little selfish and wanted to keep that kid in the Dragon Martial Guards. I still have to go on duty. Let's not talk about other things. This kid, you've put in a lot of effort. I feel that he's not inferior to those great Xia Manor's 9th level of Kaiyuan realm students or even much stronger. Oh right, this kid is also an 8th level of Kaiyuan realm cultivator. Once these words were said, Old Xie's eyes lit up. Then what's the point of cultivating the path of civilization? It's the path of the fighters. Even if a civilized division reaches the peak, it might not be as strong as US fighters. Chapter 125, Assessment was about to begin. Chapter 125, Assessment was about to begin. Do as you see fit. Xia Bing still had a mission, so he did not have the time to say anything else and quickly left. Outside the conference room, Lu Wenyan turned his head to look behind him and saw two figures pacing back and forth. He smiled and looked at them with disdain. What was he thinking? How could that kid go to Dragon Martial Academy? This old man has taught me by example for so many years. If that kid were to switch to Zhanjiang College, I'll ask him to compensate me with the Thunder Origin Saber. Would that kid have the money to compensate me? Su family. Suyu had not gone out for many days. Over 10 days, he opened the atlas once a day. Every day, he absorbed yuan qi to temper his acupoints, expending more than 10 drops of blood essence. The ninth acupoint, Baihui acupoint, was already flickering with light. The yuan qi above his head was beginning to gather. This was the sign that the ninth acupoint was about to be opened. It was about to be completed. In less than half a month, the ninth acupoint was about to be opened. This speed was extremely astonishing. Of course, the cost was not small. But to others, what was more than 10 drops of blood essence? If a dozen or so drops of blood essence could enter the ninth level of the origin opening realm, the number of people who could sell their houses and cultivate could be queued up in the Great Xia Mansion. Bang bang bang. You, open the door. Chen Hao's voice. Su Yu stood up and opened the door. Chen Hao was holding some food in his hand. He complained, "You didn't go out again. You, have you gone mad from cultivating? My dad wants me to advise you to be more careful. Don't be so stubborn. It won't affect you if you can't cultivate to the ninth level of the origin opening realm." What are you doing? Su Yu smiled and didn't say anything. He took the food and opened it to take a look. He said with some disdain, "It's braised pork again. Can't you change it to something lighter?" "Whether I eat it or not, I bought it with my pocket money." Chen Hao said gloomily, You're about to scam me out of my pocket money." "Scam?" Su Yu chuckled and said, "From tomorrow onwards, you can stop buying it." "I scam you? If I scam you, can you enter the fifth level of origin opening realm? Do you believe that I'll spread the word that the people who send me food will line up in the Great Xia Manor?" Once these words were said, Chen Hao immediately grinned. You, cultivating in your house is really good. Is your feng shui good?" "Idiot." Su Yu cursed. He could not be bothered with him. Feng shui was good. "These few days, I have been gathering yuan qi. How much of an advantage did you have?" Of course, he did not mind. Since he could not use it, Chen Hao would be able to advance to the fifth level of opening yuan after absorbing it. Chen Hao was elated for a moment, but he quickly thought of something important and said, "The assessment process is out. It's about the same as last year. Do you want to take a look?" "Give it to me." Su Yu took the flow chart that he handed over. He glanced at it and nodded slightly. There wasn't much of a difference from before. Zhanjiang College's assessment, morning of the 25th. Civilization College's assessment, afternoon of the 25th. It was still the same rules as in the past years. For those at or below the third level of Kaiyuan, 10 points for each level would need to be determined by the assessment. From the fourth to the sixth level of Kaiyuan, 30 points for each level would need to be determined by the assessment. From the seventh to the ninth level of Kaiyuan, 50 points for each level. 10 points for mastering a language of 10,000 clans. Apart from the language of 10,000 clans, the achievement points obtained would be 10 points for each point. I'm at 8th level of the origin opening realm, so this is 220 points. I've mastered 20 myriad clan languages, so 200 points. I've accumulated 10 merit points, 100 points, outside of the myriad clan language. In addition, I've sketched out the divine text, so 100 to 300 points. Su Yu saw a very small rule that added points, and he almost ignored it. Probably because he hadn't considered the fact that Nan Yuan had this additional point, the font of the rule that was printed out seemed to be slightly smaller. Then, does that mean that I have at least 620 points? Su Yu looked at it for a while and smiled. According to the previous year's rules, the Southern Element examination, if one had more than 200 points, then almost any academy would be free to take the examination. Of course, the rules of War Academy and Civilization Academy were slightly different. They were roughly the same. However, there was a limit to the additional points in the myriad languages. The highest additional points would not exceed 100 points. Similarly, the Civilization College had some restrictions as well. The lowest number of points one could get from the language of 10,000 races was no less than 8. This was to prevent some of the stronger students from going to the Civilization College. Those who could master the language of 10,000 races would go to Zhanjin College and teach them according to their aptitude. If they were not good enough, it would be a waste of their talents if they entered the college randomly. It has nothing to do with me. In any case, I have met the standards for both sides. Su Yu did not pay too much attention to it. The assessment was just a formality. The key was still the reward for the first place. As for Chen Hao, he was at 5th level of Kaiyuan realm. His score was 90 points, and he had 3 basic languages of myriad languages. His score was 30 points, and his score was 30 points. That was a total of 150 points. His score was the additional 3 merit points that he had obtained, therefore, those 3 merit points were no longer counted as additional points. Apart from that, Zhanjin College also had other additional points for the assessment. Those who passed the assessment would also receive bonus points. Under normal circumstances, an additional 30 points would not be a big problem. After calculating, it was around 180 points. It's difficult to pass the Great Xia Zhanjin College, but the other Zhanjin colleges aren't that difficult. Su Yu helped him calculate. Chen Hao had never thought about the Great Xia Zhanjin College before. In any case, there were quite a number of Zhanjin colleges. With a score of 150 points or more, other than Long Wu and the Great Xia Zhanjin College, he would be able to pass the assessment. Therefore, Chen Hao did not feel much pressure. As long as he passed the exam, he would be able to enter the war institution. As for the other 4th or 5th level of Kaiyuan, their chances of entering the ordinary war institution were also very high. As for the 3rd level, their chances were not high, unless they performed extremely well in other aspects. Therefore, in the past, those who were able to enter the war institution in the Southern Yuan dynasty were almost all students who were above 4th level of Kaiyuan. Even if they were at 4th level of Kaiyuan, whether or not they could pass the exam would depend on their luck. Su Yu continued to read as he ate, looking at the reward for the first place. Previously, for the first place in Zhanjin College, Nanyuan had given him 3 drops of vital essence. As for the Civilization College, they had given him a book that was worth tens of thousands of lives. These were all rewards given by Nanyuan himself. As for the various colleges, the higher-ups did not specify it, and it was unknown if there were any rewards. According to people, this reward could only be given to the college. In addition to the first place, the reward is 10 merit points, which counts as accumulating merit points. Su Yu saw another reward rule. This was the standard reward. Su Yu's eyes lit up. If he was first on both sides, wouldn't he get 20 more merit points? Was he going to be rich? Chapter 126, I have made up my mind. 1. Chapter 126, I have made up my mind. 1. Knock, knock, knock. Su Yu was talking to Chen Hao when someone knocked on the door. Who is it? Is Su Yu at home? Su Yu was a little confused. He stood up and walked to the door. He took the knife with him and asked again, who is it? Chen Hao was a little speechless when he saw him waiting at the door with the knife. Was it so exaggerated? Your father's comrade in arms. Outside the door, old Xia smiled and said, young man, you're quite vigilant. I'm Ting Kong. It's useless for you to hold a knife. Su Yu was a little embarrassed and didn't know what to say. The other party actually sensed it directly. His strength was much stronger than his even if he wasn't Ting Kong. Putting down the knife, Su Yu opened the door. There were two people standing outside the door. The one in front was old Xie. The other Su Yu looked a little familiar. After a while, he recognized him and hurriedly said, "It's Uncle Qian." The middle-aged man who was called Uncle Qian smiled and nodded. "Ah you, it's been almost a year since we last met. Uncle Qian, please come in." Su Yu immediately greeted him. This was his father's friend. Of course, he did not have much contact with him. He was also his father's old comrade in arms. However, it was not a period of time. He had only served in the Demon Suppression Army. As for what he did in the Southern Yuan, Su Yu had forgotten. He was probably a small leader in some organization. Old Xie walked into the room and laughed, "Young man, you are quite vigilant. You are just like us who were soldiers. You are indeed worthy of being a son of the military. It seems that your father has taught you a lot. You have not embarrassed the military." Su Yu smiled and did not say anything. He looked at Uncle Qian curiously. Who was this? Uncle Qian coughed lightly and introduced, "Ah you, this is Lord Xie from the Dragon Martial Guards. Don't be so polite. Just call me Uncle Xie." Old Xie said this to Su Yu and walked around the room as if they were familiar with each other. He looked at Chen Hao and laughed, "This is your friend." Chen Hao. Chen Hao was confused. He didn't know the other party, but when he heard that the other party was from the Dragon Martial Guards, he said excitedly, "I am Chen Hao." "Uncle, are you from the Dragon Martial Guards?" "Yes, I was also from the Demon Suppression Army back then. Later, I went to the Dragon Martial Guards." "The Dragon Martial Guards don't separate from the Demon Suppression Army. We're all one family." Old Xie laughed heartily. He didn't have the seriousness of a soldier at all. "Su Yu, aren't you going to invite us to sit down?" Only then did Su Yu recover from his daze. He hurriedly invited the two of them to sit down and kicked Chen Hao. "Go get some tea." "Ah you don't have any tea leaves at home." Su Yu cursed in his heart. "Don't you know how to fool around and get some plain water?" Old Xie chuckled and said, "It's fine, I don't want any tea." As he said that, he waved at Su Yu and said, "Sit down and chat. It's your own home. Don't be polite and don't be reserved. We're all family." Su Yu sat down and still had some doubts. His father wasn't at home, and these people came to his home to visit him. Why did he feel that something wasn't right? "Yo, are you looking at the enrollment process?" Old Xie suddenly saw the schedule on the table and smiled. "Where are you two preparing to take the exam?" "We're all family." "Are you preparing to go to Dragon Martial University?" "That's true. If we go to Dragon Martial University, we'll be a family. If we have any problems, we'll have help." Chen Hao stood at the side and said embarrassedly, "We might not be able to pass the exam." "Who said that?" Old Xie smiled and said, "Dragon Martial Academy is naturally difficult for outsiders to pass, but for our own people, isn't that simple? Little Chen, you have 30 points to add to your score, right? I see that if you're at 5th level of Origin Opening Realm, then Dragon Martial Academy will be simple." "I said it, you've been accepted." Chen Hao had a dumbfounded look on his face. "I've been accepted? What's going on? Uncle, are you here to tease us?" At this moment, Su Yu seemed to have understood. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He coughed lightly and said, "Uncle Xie, are you from Dragon Martial Academy?" "Oh, you know about this too?" Old Xie smiled and said, "Yes, I'm now working as a training instructor at Dragon Martial Academy. I'm also one of the invigilators for your Southern Yuan's assessment this time. So if I say that you can go, then you can definitely go. We're all family." The descendants of the Demon Suppression Army brothers. How can I not take care of them? Chen Hao really wanted to say that his father was not from the Demon Suppression Army. Su Yu did not give him a chance to speak. He smiled lightly and said, "Uncle Xie, then I'll thank you on behalf of Chen Hao." After saying that, he looked at Chen Hao and said, "Haozi, if you can't get into the Great Xia War Institution, then go to the Dragon Martial University. Uncle Xie is familiar with it there. You'll have someone to look after you when you go there." Old Xie laughed and didn't say anything. Interesting. He even tried to trick me. However, with Chen Hao's results, if nothing unexpected happened, it wouldn't be a big problem for him to get into the Dragon Martial Institution. He didn't say anything. After he finished speaking, he said, "Aren't you two brothers going together? When you get to the institution, you'll also have someone to look after you. You're not familiar with the place, so if you two work together, you won't be lonely. A strong person can endure loneliness." Su Yu said this and then revealed a smile. "Uncle Xie, to be honest, my main focus is still cultivating the path of civilization. I've paid attention to and understood Dragon Martial Academy before. There seems to be a course for civilized teachers, but..." He didn't finish his sentence, but old Xie also understood. When he heard this, he couldn't help but smile. That was before. This year is different. Since you have Lu Wenyan as your teacher, you should know what the rank of researcher means. Of course, this is the division of the Civilized Academy. In general, you can also understand it as strength. This time, more than a dozen intermediate researchers and a few advanced researchers from the Dragon Martial Guard will return. In the future, there will be fewer battles in the heavens battlefield. These people will be teaching in the academy. In our academy, there are very, very few civilized master students. It can be said that 10 people will have one official researcher to guide them. Chapter 127, I have made up my mind. 2. Chapter 127, I have made up my mind. 2. As for the Great Xia Institute of Civilization, I admit that they are very strong in this aspect, but there are also many students. Those who have graduated, those who have not graduated, and those who have retired, there are a total of tens of thousands of people who have not vacated. Old Xia said seriously, their institute still has less than 300 researchers teaching, and each of them is responsible for an average of 100 students. Su Yu, do you really think that you can learn anything from Civilization Institute? The competition there is very intense, and it's full of deceit. Especially with the recent opening of the Myriad Races Training Institute, it's even more chaotic. When you get there, you might not see an official researcher for several years. Even if you see one, they will ignore you. It's different when you get to Dragon Martial University. You are a child of the military, so you are a little closer to them. Your talent is also not bad. When you get there, there will even be a senior researcher who will specially take care of you. This is a completely different treatment. Old Xia said sincerely and sighed, I also think highly of you because I believe that the descendants of the military are the most outstanding. Su Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If these words were to be said, the entire Great Xia family would have millions of soldiers and even more descendants. It was as if it was all for naught. Uncle Xie, I'll think about it again. Don't think about it anymore. Just come straight here. What's there to take the test for? I'll specially recruit you. Old Xie's words were very generous, there's no need to take the test. We'll just enter as a family and specially recruit students into the academy. There will also be additional rewards. The merit points will directly give you 100 points. If you go to Civilization Academy, you won't be able to earn any merit points even after a few years. If you don't have merit points, you'll just be a handyman in Civilization Academy. After a few years of handyman, you'll get old and past the prime time for cultivation. By then, you'll be useless. Chen Hao's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he hurriedly asked, Do I have one too? Old Xie really wanted to say that he had some idea in his heart. However, he swallowed his words and chuckled. Suyu went to Dragon Martial University. How about I give you a yellow rank intermediate grade battle saber? Chen Hao's mouth was wide open. It was more than 100,000. Was Dragon Martial University so rich? In the next moment, Chen Hao woke up and felt a little disappointed. I'm not stupid, I need you to go. You definitely wouldn't go. He's already at the 8th level of Kaiyuan realm, who would go to the Dragon Martial Academy. Wouldn't it be good for him to go to the Great Xia War Academy? Although the Dragon Martial Academy rose up very quickly, it had only been established for a short period of time. It still couldn't compare to the deep foundations of the Great Xia War Academy. Putting everything else aside, the Great Xia War Academy had many more Shanghai realm experts than the Dragon Martial Academy. Seeing that Suyu was unmoved, Old Xie did not beat around the bush, he directly said, Suyu, think about it. 100 merit points, 10 yuan chi liquid drops, 1 chance to enter the secret realm. This is the highest treatment the Dragon Martial Academy or even the entire Great Xia Academy can receive. 9th level of Kaiyuan realm, a genius who has drawn out a complete divine text. Some of these people are unable to receive such treatment. Only when the Academy grants special permission can some people enjoy such treatment. It's the same for any academy. If you go to a civilized academy, even if you say that you've drawn a complete divine text, your willpower is still too weak. I'm afraid that they won't give you such a chance to start. Old Xie said seriously, within my authority, I'll strive for the greatest benefits and the best preferential treatment for you. Moreover, I'm not lying when I say that the civilized academy is in chaos. You can ask your teacher about the current situation of the civilized academy. Suyu nodded. Thank you for your concern, uncle. I will think it through. Think it over carefully. After coming to our place, you still have a chance to visit your father. The demon suppression army will take turns to guard him. Once your father retreats from the front line, you will have the opportunity to visit him at any time. You can't go anywhere else. These words somewhat poked at Suyu. Suyu was silent for a moment before saying again, I will think it over carefully. Then I won't disturb you anymore. Old Xie was a little disappointed when he saw that he was not moved. However, since he had already said so much, there was no point in continuing to pester him. Old Xie left. Uncle Qian had accompanied him here to prove his identity, so Suyu did not have to think too much about it. After they left, Chen Hao said with an envious look, did you come here in advance to specially recruit you? Yes. Can a top student be like this? Chen Hao had a face full of sorrow. We're so miserable. We still had to think about passing the assessment, but the other party had already been specially recruited. The treatment given made him want to rob them, but this Suyu still refused. Suyu smiled and said, the Great Xia Manor doesn't lack geniuses. The Dragon Martial Academy found me, probably because of something else. It wasn't just because he had learned a lot of myriad languages and wasn't at 8th level of Kaiyuan realm. These things weren't lacking in the Dragon Martial Academy. The key was that he had assisted Wind Seizing Hall in killing a myriad stone. The other party could probably guess that he had completed the outline of the divine inscriptions. Although Captain Lu said that it wouldn't be leaked, the military knew that it wasn't a surprise. The Dragon Martial Guards were the representatives of the Great Xia Mansion's military. Dragon Martial Guards. Suyu muttered in his heart and felt a little emotional. In the past, his greatest wish was to enter the Dragon Martial Guards, and so was his father. However, today, the soaring realm of the Dragon Martial Guards had come to recruit him. Xia Bing had also mentioned this matter before. As expected, everything needed to be fought for by oneself. If he was still the same 3rd level of Kaiyuan as before, no one would come to recruit him. Suyu did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. If you yourself did not have that value, why should others think highly of you? The so-called military disciples were just a stepping stone. Naturally, they had a few more intimate attributes. What was the point of relying on this identity? It was a pipe dream. The great Xia manor did not lack military disciples. However, when you had value, this identity was very useful.